Chapter 1925, Sacrifice and Escape Buzz. Two blood-red lightsabers clashed violently. Flames erupted from the point of impact, spreading outward with the two combatants at the center. The force of the dark side was so intense that even the charred trees around them were blown away. It was clear that even the god of death couldn't withstand Darth Vader's long-awaited strike. She retreated continuously, transforming into black mist and retreating to the west. Darth Vader slashed several times, but his lightsaber passed through the black mist, unable to make contact. He wasn't surprised or panicked. A dull sneer escaped from under his dark mask. "You still don't know how to fight, Master Adigalia." Before he finished speaking, his lightsaber struck down with immense power, the dark side force sweeping in like a hurricane. In the face of such a terrifying wind, the black fog of death couldn't move. The sword came down like a rainbow, hitting the death god's lightsaber. This seemingly indifferent strike caused the dark side force around the death god's body to collapse. It was the broken point, Master Windu's best force technique, which integrates force precognition, telepathy, and other skills to find the most critical and fatal point of the opponent and destroy it directly. The god of death let out a shrill scream, her body dispersing into countless black mist particles. However, she soon reformed, seemingly unscathed. "It seems that your current state cannot even be considered living, Master Adigalia," Darth Vader taunted, using her real name to provoke her, though it seemed to have little effect. "This makes me wonder, why are you here, Count Dooku, or the Angel of Death? Everyone who participated in the destruction of the Republic and the Jedi Order must die." The god of death responded, her voice hoarse and terrifying. Darth Vader didn't seem to care about her answer. "No, Count Dooku did not have the ability to give you such power. Moreover, you were indeed killed by the angels, so it was the Angel of Death who created you and sent you here?" The dark side force radiating from him grew more terrifying, his voice more sinister. "Does this mean that the Angel of Death is ready to start another war?" The god of death let out a terrifying roar and rushed forward again. Her figure changed unpredictably, her lightsaber appearing and disappearing as she stabbed hundreds of times around Darth Vader almost instantly. But Darth Vader stood still. He held his lightsaber in one hand to fight against the god of death, and with a wave of his other hand, he constructed a strange red force barrier. This barrier was extremely powerful, blocking the god of death's attacks one after another. Darth Vader's swordsmanship had changed. It became calm and seemingly slow, but each swing of his sword blocked the god of death's attacks. He was using the third form of lightsaber combat, Soresu, but with a variant that was more suitable for his body. "Heh. It seems that the dead angels are not ready yet. This makes me a little disappointed," Darth Vader said coldly. The god of death didn't answer. Her attacks grew fiercer, but she still couldn't break through Darth Vader's defense. However, it was clear that her swordsmanship was constantly being refined. If her previous attacks were more like the instinct of a beast, now, Death's swordsmanship showed traces of refinement, clearly adapting to her current physical condition. "Heh, interesting. I never thought that one day you would actually learn swordsmanship from me, Adigalia. Heh. Shouldn't you be a member of the Jedi Order Council? Where's your pride?" Darth Vader taunted Death. As soon as he finished speaking, his swordplay became extremely aggressive once more. He shifted from a defensive stance to an offensive one, employing a technique reminiscent of the fourth form, Ataru, but with significant improvements. Today's Darth Vader was no longer the Anakin Skywalker of the Clone Wars. Back then, Anakin had initially excelled in the fourth form, Ataru, but later began to master the fifth form, Xian Gem So. However, his body was destroyed by Darth Malthael, and after being encased in his life support armor, his previous techniques became obsolete. The armor was bulkier, taller, and altered the weight and length of his limbs, disrupting his mobility. Yet he soon overcame these challenges with his unparalleled lightsaber talent. He relearned all 7 forms of lightsaber combat, adapting them to his new body, and created a unique, integrated style. Now, as a master of lightsaber combat, Darth Vader could rival even Darth Sidious and Darth Malthael, becoming one of the galaxy's strongest swordsmen. His swordsmanship was far superior to that of Death, who was still adjusting to her new form. Under his relentless assault, Death struggled to defend herself. However, her body was constantly changing. When she transformed into smoke, Darth Vader was powerless unless he used his Shatterpoint ability. Additionally, her force power grew stronger every second, resembling Darth Malthael's force of death more than the dark side. The vitality of all living things around her was being absorbed, making her power nearly limitless. Despite having the upper hand, Darth Vader couldn't quickly defeat Death. Their battle raged from afternoon to night. Finally, Darth Vader seized an opportunity and used his Shatterpoint ability to strike with his lightsaber. Caught off guard, Death was stabbed directly in the heart, letting out a scream of terror. Black mist erupted uncontrollably from her heart, and her body began to collapse. The strike had hit her true core. Just as Darth Vader was about to deliver the fatal blow, Death transformed into countless black mist particles and dispersed in all directions, ready to flee. Darth Vader quickly locked onto a direction and pursued her with his lightsaber. Despite his bulky armor, the Force propelled him to speeds approaching 100 kilometers per hour, leaving only an afterimage in his wake. The chase led them into the depths of the jungle. During the pursuit, Darth Vader noticed black mist rising from the ground and being absorbed by Death, allowing her to recover visibly. On this planet, countless lives had perished, providing her with an endless supply of nutrients. Darth Vader realized the terrifying potential and plasticity of Death. Once she completed her growth, she would undoubtedly become a formidable enemy to both him and Sidious. But now, "You are still too weak, Master Adigalia," Darth Vader declared coldly as he pursued her. "You were weak in life, and you remain weak in death." The God of Death emitted a sound that was a mix of screaming and laughing, continuing her frantic escape. However, she could not evade Darth Vader's relentless pursuit. After locking onto her, Darth Vader issued remote instructions through communication, ordering the Imperial Army to launch a full-scale attack on Covetio City, the capital of the planet Felucia. "If the high hopes placed on you by the dead angels amount to this, then I am truly disappointed." Darth Vader's voice was ferocious. "This only proves that the dead angels are nothing more than a disappointment." The God of Death kept running. Despite absorbing the life force from countless deaths and recovering significantly, she still did not dare to turn and fight. Her intelligence had not yet returned to the level of Adigalia. She was more like a beast driven solely by the instinct to kill. For years, she had been alone in the underground city of the Taurus planet. There was no one to talk to, no one to communicate with, only endless killing and escaping. In such an environment, her mind had almost entirely reverted to a beast-like state. This instinct told her not to confront Darth Vader because she knew she was no match for him. Turning back now would only mean death. Darth Vader was equally determined to kill her. He followed her relentlessly, and she could not shake him off, even as she continued to absorb power. His powerful talent as the Chosen One, combined with the high mid-chlorian density that made him almost entirely composed of the Force, rendered his power nearly inexhaustible. The situation was becoming increasingly desperate. At that moment, a Belbalab 22 fighter jet suddenly flew over at high speed. This was a fighter jet equipped by the Federation of Independent Systems for Dark Jedi. However, it was being pursued by several TIE LN fighter jets. The Belbalab 22 was powerful and fast, but lacked flexibility. Yet, the flight trajectory of this particular jet was mysterious and agile, evading the dense firepower behind it. It was clear that a powerful Force-sensitive being was piloting it. The fighter jet swooped down crazily, aiming directly at Darth Vader. Boom! The jet crashed without slowing down, forcing Darth Vader to dodge due to its terrifying speed. The impact caused a massive explosion. As Darth Vader dodged, a blood-red lightsaber slashed towards him. Buzz! Darth Vader reacted swiftly, blocking the attack instantly and jumping back to create distance. Between him and the God of Death now stood a Weequay wearing a black Jedi combat uniform. This Weequay looked old but still exuded a majestic and imposing presence. He held a blood-red lightsaber in his hand, adopting the seventh sword technique stance, Vapad. "Thora Bulk, have you finally decided to leave your heavily guarded fortress?" Darth Vader mocked. The old Weequay Dark Jedi was indeed Thora Bulk, a former swordsman of the Jedi Order, He had been an important assistant to Master Windu in creating the seventh form of Vapad swordsmanship. He was one of the strongest swordsmen of his time. However, Thorabok lacked significant talent in the Force beyond his swordsmanship. After falling to the dark side, the true essence of Vapad swordsmanship no longer existed within him. Additionally, due to his age, Thorabok's strength had waned. But even so, he remained one of the most powerful among the Dark Believers. Thorabok was once the commander of the ground forces for the Confederacy of Independent Systems during the Battle of Salakami. After the fall of the planet, he managed to escape and return to Laxus to join Count Dooku. Now, he serves as the commander-in-chief of the Confederate Robot Legion on the planet Felucia. In previous battles, Thorabok orchestrated harassment and counterattacks from the jungle. However, after the last of the Scorpion Annihilator robots were destroyed, he found himself without any significant assets. Consequently, he retreated to his fortified command center, avoiding direct confrontation. But now, he had rushed over, disregarding all caution. "I sensed the fighting here. I didn't expect to see you, Adigalia," Thorabok said calmly, his eyes wary of Darth Vader. Adigalia, the god of death, didn't respond. She fled into the jungle, disappearing swiftly. Darth Vader did not pursue her, as Thorabok was an opponent he could not afford to underestimate. "This isn't like you, Thorabok, sacrificing yourself to save others. You've long abandoned the creed of the Jedi Order. Stop these pathetic attempts," Darth Vader taunted. "Destroy the Galactic Empire. Kill Darth Sidious. Kill you. Adigalia is more suited for this goal than I am." Thorabok replied with a strange smile. He slowly raised his lightsaber, adopting a combat stance. Chapter 1926, The End of Felucia. "You should know very well that if you draw a sword against me, the final outcome will be death, right?" Darth Vader said coldly. He slowly raised the lightsaber in his hand, adopting a unique and improved stance. This style seemed to blend elements of the fifth form of lightsaber combat, Gemso, with characteristics of the third and fourth forms. Seeing such a formidable display, even Thorabok's expression grew serious. If it had been anyone else, Thorabok would have scolded them for recklessly modifying the traditional lightsaber stance. But standing before him now was Darth Vader, one of the strongest beings in the entire galaxy. Faced with such an opponent, Thorabok knew that Vader's adjustments were not to be taken lightly. Thorabok took a deep breath and retrieved another object from his waist, a short-barreled blaster shotgun. He slowly connected the back ends of the blaster shotgun and lightsaber hilt, forming a unique combat stance. It resembled a gunfighting technique and a variation of lightsaber combat, using the shotgun as a secondary lightsaber. This was a brand new technique based on gunfighting principles, a unique lightsaber style belonging to Thorabok. As Thorabok adjusted his breathing, his connection with the Force reached an optimal state. Although he was not swayed by Darth Vader's words, he knew that Vader was right. Thorabok had come to this fight with the mentality of sacrificing himself. Thorabok was a renowned and resilient rebel within the Jedi Order, even 3 months after the first Battle of Geonosis during the Clone Wars. He was a leader of the war faction. During the Battle of Geonosis, Master Windu led over 200 Jedi Knights to the planet Geonosis to rescue Obi-Wan Kenobi, who had been kidnapped by the Separatists. Thorabok was one of the Jedi who participated in this battle, using his exceptional swordsmanship to fight his way through countless battle droids in the arena. At that time, Thorabok still maintained a rational perspective on the situation's development. He opposed the war, believing that if it were allowed to break out, both the Galactic Republic and the Jedi Order would deviate from their former paths. However, Count Dooku found him and told him that the Galactic Republic was on the brink of collapse. This war would ignite almost all internal conflicts within the Republic, pushing it into the abyss of destruction. Count Dooku also told Thorabok that a powerful force must be established within the galaxy to eliminate these internal conflicts. He claimed that only the Jedi Order still possessed moral and rational purity. If the Jedi Order could be changed and rule the Galactic Republic more powerfully, all the issues Thorabok worried about would be resolved. The biggest problem, according to Dooku, was that Masters Yoda and Windu, who led the Jedi Order, did not share this vision. Therefore, they were the culprits preventing the galaxy from becoming stronger and more united. Originally, Count Dooku's words were just manipulative rhetoric, but his eloquence was so convincing that Sorabok believed him. He wholeheartedly believed that his actions were to save the galaxy, save the Galactic Republic, and change the Jedi Order. He prepared and trained extensively for this cause. When Sorabok first fell to the dark side, he didn't. Sorabok had never fully grasped the depth of his own awareness. He always believed he was merely teetering between darkness and light when he employed the Wapad sword technique. After being swayed by Count Dooku, Sorabok left the Jedi Order and joined the Confederacy of Independent Systems, becoming one of Dooku's most formidable dark followers. Despite this, his core beliefs remained unchanged. He thought he was still fighting for the Galactic Republic and the Jedi Order. However, after witnessing the reorganization of the Galactic Republic and the fall of the Jedi Order, Sorabok was consumed by despair. He felt his struggle had ultimately failed. Thus, in the battle to defend the planet, Felucia, Sorabok had resigned himself to die. But the powerful force fluctuations from the clash between Death and Darth Vader caught his attention. Rushing to the scene, Sorabok decided there was still something he could do before his end. Sorabok knew that Darth Vader was Anakin Skywalker. As one of the most powerful dark followers in the Confederacy of Independent Systems, he had access to this information. He despised the traitor who had issued Order 66 and destroyed the Jedi Order. Determined to thwart Vader's plans, Sorabok resolved to stop him at all costs. If Vader intended to kill Master Adi Gallia, who appeared to be in a dire state, Sorabok would not let him succeed. Moreover, as Adi Gallia's predecessor in the Jedi Order, he had a favorable impression of the wise Jedi Master and felt compelled to assist her. Seeing that the God of Death had fled and realizing there was no chance to kill this powerful and enigmatic Jedi, Darth Vader was enraged. He advanced towards Sorabok with menacing intent. If he couldn't kill Adi Gallia, then eliminating Sorabok, one of the most powerful dark followers in the Confederacy, would be a significant victory. Darth Vader suddenly lunged forward, his bloody lightsaber slashing down with terrifying power. Sorabok, wielding a sword in his left hand and a short-barreled shotgun in his right, fired and swung his sword in a seamless combination of ranged and melee attacks. The shotgun's spread and range restricted Vader's movements, while the lightsaber in Sorabok's hand was fully engaged. He employed the seventh sword technique, Wapad, a powerful style created by Master Mace Windu. Only Windu, Sorabok, and Depa Billaba in the entire galaxy had mastered it to perfection. The Wapad technique was immensely powerful, blending the dark side's ferocity with the light side's stability. In Sorabok's hands, it became even more cunning and vicious, especially when combined with the blaster shotgun. For a while, he managed to keep Darth Vader at bay. As the two men fought fiercely, neither noticed the unexpected development occurring in the outer space of Felucia. The planet was surrounded by 10 Imperial-class Star Destroyers and 3 Cheer-class assault landing ships. These warships, positioned in planetary synchronous orbit, continued to deploy more Imperial stormtroopers to the surface. They also provided fire support for ground troops and served as takeoff and landing platforms for fighter formations. With Darth Vader having defeated the God of Death in the previous battle and pursuing him far away, the ground offensive, previously stalled due to the God of Death's interference, resumed. The target was Covidio City, the capital of Felucia. For this offensive, the Imperial Army deployed 100,000 troops, all clone warriors of the Imperial Stormtroopers, equipped with the latest gear, including the 1M medium-sized hover tank designed for combat. The Scorpion tanks of the Principality of Dawn, upgraded from the TX-130 Saber hover tank, and the 1H heavy tank, which is the backbone of the Imperial Army replacing the ATTE Walker, were deployed. Alongside them was the most powerful Walker vehicle, currently in the Imperial Army, the AT-AT. Additionally, a full 200,000 troops were deployed as reserves behind the main force. This massive army directly broke into the interior of Covidio City, where the robot army of the Confederacy of Independent Systems put up a determined resistance, utilizing the urban terrain to their advantage. In this battle, to maintain the ground offensive, most of the Galactic Empire's fleets focused on providing support for the ground battlefield. At this moment, a dazzling white light suddenly flashed in the outer space of the planet. Immediately afterward, a huge spaceship emerged from a hyperspace jump and appeared in the universe. With a length of 4,825 meters, a massive hull, and a sharp bow resembling a bird's beak, it was the Conqueror-class battleship, the super battleship of the Confederation of Independent Systems. However, unlike the previously destroyed No. 1 ship Fang and the No. 2 ship Destruction, currently under Severance Tan's fleet, the sides of this battleship were not equipped with dish-shaped devices for launching targeted high-energy electromagnetic pulses. Instead, they were replaced by a pair of hemispherical devices. This was the third ship of the Conqueror-class battleship, the Carnage, equipped with a secret weapon, the Breath of the Dragon. After leaving hyperspace, the Carnage accelerated towards the planet. The Galactic Empire fleet, which was in planet-synchronous orbit, was unable to react immediately. By the time these battleships began to turn around under the orders of their respective captains, the Carnage had already approached the planet and entered the planet's synchronous orbit. The Conqueror-class battleship is not designed for atmospheric combat. Its massive body makes it difficult to maneuver in such an environment. The actions of the Carnage were unexpected, as it seemed to willingly give up its mobility to confront the Imperial fleet head-on. An Imperial-class Star Destroyer had already approached the Carnage, and the two sides were exchanging fierce fire. The 500 medium-sized turbolaser cannons on the Carnage fired dense beams of light onto the Imperial-class Star Destroyer. Despite the powerful artillery bombardment, the Imperial-class Star Destroyer stood firm, showcasing the advancements of a new generation of battleships. This was no longer the era of the Clone Wars, where Conqueror-class battleships could easily defeat Jaeger-class battlecruisers. Even a single Imperial-class Star Destroyer now had the firepower and protection to compete head-on with a Conqueror-class battleship. Although the Imperial class would likely lose in a direct confrontation, the fact that it could hold its own against such a massive opponent highlighted the changing times and the advancements in technology. However, the Carnage was not there to engage the Imperial fleet. After entering synchronous orbit, the hemispherical devices on both sides of the battleship unfolded, revealing a strange-looking launcher emitting green mist, the Breath of the Dragon, a launcher for the biochemical virus Trihexalon, a super virus capable of killing every living thing on the planet. Before more Imperial-class Star Destroyers could arrive on the scene, the Breath of the Dragon opened fire. Rays composed of green smoke were launched towards the planet's surface, and the green smoke began to spread rapidly. The color grew lighter, the scope wider, gradually sweeping across the entire surface of the planet. The first to be affected was the planet's capital city, Covidio City, which was currently undergoing a fierce offensive. Defensive battle. Thora Balk sensed the spread of the virus through his connection to the Force. He abruptly raised his head and looked towards the sky. Although the poisonous gas was no longer visible, the overwhelming sense of danger emanating from the Force was a constant reminder. Death was descending from above. He quickly realized that he had been abandoned. Count Dooku had ordered the use of the dragon's breath on the planet Felucia, clearly willing to sacrifice over 10 million civilian lives to eliminate the main forces of the Imperial stormtroopers stationed there. When Dooku issued this order, he had not considered Thora Balk's survival. The old Weequay Dark Jedi Master gazed at the sky in despair. It wasn't just that Count Dooku had betrayed him. What was even more unbearable was that Dooku had betrayed his own beliefs. Thora Balk realized that Dooku was not fighting for the freedom of the galaxy or a better future. His true motivation was his own power and ambition. Dooku, when did you start abandoning your ideals? Thora Balk sighed, feeling the last remnants of his resolve shatter. In that moment of vulnerability, Darth Vader's blood-red lightsaber pierced Thora Balk's heart. Simultaneously, 10 Empire-class Star Destroyers arrived and engaged in a fierce battle with the Carnage battleship in Planet S, Yincronus orbit. After more than 2 hours of intense combat, the Carnage was finally overwhelmed. Under the relentless bombardment from the Empire-class star destroyers, the battleship erupted in a violent explosion. Fires spread across its surface, and it began to fall uncontrollably. Chapter 1927, The End of the Confederation of Independent Systems. 1. He took the wrong first step. Although he later realized his mistake and tried to correct his course, it was too late. That initial misstep condemned him to be a disposable pawn forever. No matter how hard he struggled, he could not escape this fate. Yet, I admire him because his efforts and actions ignited a spark in the galaxy. Tang Xiao. Interviews with the Emperor of the Fourth Empire. Part 3, Chapter 9, discussing Count Dooku. When Thora Balk died, filled with disappointment towards Count Dooku and the desolation of unfulfilled beliefs, he did not know that Count Dooku and the Confederacy of Independent Systems no longer existed. This was why the battleship Carnage launched a single-ship raid on the planet Felucia, a mission that could only be described as suicidal. Before Felucia fell, the Confederacy of Independent Systems had already been destroyed and had faded into the annals of galactic history. 3 days earlier, while the ground forces of the Galactic Empire were being harassed by death, and Darth Vader had dispatched 4 Dark Jedi to eliminate death, the capital of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, the subplanet of Laxus, was in turmoil. In the Parliament of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, the once crowded seats were now sparsely occupied, with at least 2/3 of the seats empty. The remaining members, seated in their places, displayed emotions ranging from anger to despair. Everyone present knew that the Confederacy of Independent Systems could no longer sustain itself in this war. After the defense line of the planet Salukami fell, nothing could stop the main fleet of the Galactic Empire from advancing into the core territories of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Even though Darth Vader, the supreme commander of the Imperial fleet, allowed the fleet to rest on Salukami for over half a month to ensure the stability of the logistics supply line, this only delayed the inevitable demise of the Confederacy. After the rest period, Darth Vader ordered the Empire's main fleet to use Salukami as a base and launch attacks on multiple fronts. They targeted the planets Felucia, Ossus, Beldron, Tula, Mulka, and Delart with decisive offensives. The Confederacy had no fleets left to resist the powerful navy of the Galactic Empire. Consequently, the Imperial fleet advanced unimpeded, easily dismantling the weak defenses of these planets and initiating landing operations. In these planetary landings, the Galactic Empire deployed over 1.5 million troops, aiming for a decisive battle to end the conflict in one fell swoop. Count Dooku stood at the top of the parliamentary venue, gazing at the VIP seats. There were 12 seats, originally occupied by the core members of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Now, however, Tang Xiao had already led the Principality of Dawn to make peace with the Galactic Empire and would not be present. Gross Shelby, the top director of the Fourth Group who always followed Tang Xiao's lead, Newt Gunray, the governor of the Trade Federation, and San Hill, the co-chairman of the Interstellar Banking Association, had also left. The Commercial Guild had long been disbanded, and its chairman, Shu Mai, was killed, leaving that seat vacant. Techno-Union Grand Foreman Wat Tambor had surrendered to the Galactic Empire, as had the planet Samarth. Their counselor, Thunback Tula, was killed in the Battle of Salukami. Planet Zygeria had already been captured by the Imperial fleet before the fall of Salukami. Queen Malaj Sintel was killed by Darth Vader herself, and the slave-trading empire she established fell apart. Dix, the former Quarren Isolation Alliance member and current member of the Dark Planet Council, also did not attend the meeting. Although Planet Dark has not stated it clearly at present, they are already inclined to surrender directly. After all, after the Civil War ended, Dark Planet did not openly join the Confederation of Independent Systems, but only provided support through trade and OEM. If they publicly announced their support for the Galactic Empire, then at least on the surface, the Galactic Empire would not treat them harshly. Among these 12 seats, only Pernudo, the top director of the Supercommunications Industry Group, Parcel Argent, the chairman of the Enterprise Alliance, and the chairman of the Retail Alliance, who were later promoted to core members, are still present. In addition, Ainl Tim, a member of the Grand People and the current leader of the New Circle members, as the leader of the majority in the parliament, has participated in every parliament of the Confederation of Independent Systems. The Minister of the Interior of the Confederation of Independent Systems, Claire Underwood from Planet Dawn, was also present at the meeting. Claire Underwood is the wife of Francis Underwood, Prime Minister of the Dawn Principality. However, after she accepted the position of Minister of the Interior of the Confederation of Independent Systems, her position also changed, so she still stays on Loxa subplanet. Count Dooku closed his eyes and adjusted his emotions slightly. When he opened his eyes again, a determined look had appeared in his eyes once more. He is the head of the Confederation of Independent Systems. No matter how desperate the current war situation is, he must stand proudly here and hold up the last broken dome for the collapsing Confederation. On his still, energetic face, the wrinkles have become deeper and deeper. He is exhausted physically and mentally and is unable to stop the erosion of time, making him look much older than before, but he still perseveres. Just compare it to 6 years ago, when the Confederation of Independent Systems was established, when he stood on the planet Geonosis and made an impassioned speech. At that time, he was so high-spirited and majestic, but now he is standing in the Confederate Assembly. He is just an old, weak, and pretending to be calm old man. The Galactic Empire is attacking our core planet. More than 100,000 Imperial stormtroopers have landed on the planet Mercana. If we don't find a way, we won't even have our hometown. Parcel Argent, chairman of the Enterprise Alliance, said, his voice trembling. Maybe this war should not continue. I think we should carefully consider surrender, Ainletim suggested. Count Dooku raised his eyes and glanced at the Grand Councilman and said calmly, We still have one last chance. I will send the Destruction-class battleship to cooperate with the Carnage battleship to attack while the Galactic Empire's attention is on the ground battlefield. We will directly break into these planets and use the secret weapon, the Breath of the Dragon, to annihilate the Imperial stormtroopers on the planets. Chapter 1928, The End of the Confederation of Independent Systems. 2. The Dragon's Breath? Parcel Argent's body trembled. Do you want to use the Dragon's Breath on our own core planet? This is a super virus that kills indiscriminately. Are you going to kill the civilians on the planet too? As the chairman of the super corporate giant, the Enterprise Alliance, Parcel Argent certainly didn't care about the life and death of civilians. But the question was, what if the target of the slaughter was the planet Molcana, the home planet of the Kariva people? Wouldn't this mean destroying their hometown? Count Dooku did not waver at all. He said calmly, So the first target we chose is the planet Felucia. If we can use the Dragon's Breath on Felucia, we can completely annihilate the Galactic Empire's ground troops. This will delay their attack. Just slowing down the pace will not allow us to win, Ainletim said in a deep voice. The political situation of the Galactic Empire is very unstable. Uprisings and riots are happening every day, causing huge problems in the supply of their fleet. Therefore, even if we no longer have the ability to defeat their fleet, as long as we can eliminate their ground forces, we can still prevent them from launching further attacks, Count Dooku explained. If the ground forces are wiped out, the Galactic Empire will carry out orbital bombing even more unscrupulously, Ainletim countered. Orbital bombing is not without consumption. To destroy the surface of a planet, even an Imperial-class Star Destroyer must consume extremely huge energy reserves. They do not have the ability to bombard from orbit all the time, and once they do so, they will provoke even stronger resistance, Count Dooku said. Ainletim said loudly, What you are doing is equivalent to inciting and kidnapping civilians to fight against the Galactic Empire. You are asking them to die. This is also their own choice. Count Dooku's tone was extremely cold. Now the battleship Carnage is heading to the planet Felucia, and the corresponding fleet has also set off from the military spaceport of the Laxus subplanet. This matter is determined. So Tang Xiao is right. You have been pampered as a noble since you were a child, and you cannot understand what freedom is and what fairness is. You lit this fire, but you have no idea why this fire can burn. You hold a fire that can ignite the entire galaxy, but you only use this fire to light up your own feet. Ainletim stood up. You have completely deviated from your original intention. Count Dooku snorted coldly, and his expression became a little ugly. This is not something you can judge, Senator Tim. You have to know that the one who resists the Galactic Empire to the last person must be me, not you, a coward who thinks about surrender all day long. You should understand who is taking the lead and fighting on the front line. Could it be you? As soon as he finished speaking, the door to the Parliament Hall suddenly opened with a bang, and the wreckage of several B-2 super battle robots flew into the venue. A tall figure appeared at the door of the venue, then strode in and said, "That's right, the person fighting on the front line is me." Count Dooku raised his eyes and said calmly, "Ah, General Grievous, it turns out you are not dead yet." The man who came in was indeed General Grievous. He strode in, walked up to Anal Tim, and said coldly, "What we need is never surrender and compromise. What we need is the courage to fight to the end." Before he finished speaking, there was a sudden buzzing sound, and a green lightsaber flashed across instantly. Anal Tim didn't even have time to react before his head was severed. The entire Parliament Hall was in an uproar. Anal Tim, the leader of the New Ring faction and the majority leader in the Congress of the Confederation of Independent Systems, was dead. Apart from Count Dooku, no one else had the authority to make such a drastic decision. Dooku, the person with the greatest political influence in the council, was actually killed in public by General Grievous. The council members stood up one after another. They wanted to escape, but didn't dare. They stayed there for a while, not knowing what to do. "I'm back from the edge of hell, for the second time," General Grievous declared as he approached Count Dooku, his words laden with hints. "Because of this, you are my most trusted general. Now that the Destruction-class battleship has been stationed at the space station above the Laxus subplanet, your return allows me to not worry about who to send to command this battleship," Count Dooku said. He glanced at the headless body of Ainla Tim and added coldly, "But killing Counselor Ainla Tim is something you absolutely should not have done. Upon your return, you will also be severely punished." "Ah, severe punishment." General Grievous's tone was full of ridicule. "Yes, severe punishment. After all, I killed someone I shouldn't have. This is not the result you wanted. I'm glad you were able to recognize this problem right away," Count Dooku said. "Now, you can set off." "As you wish, Dooku," General Grievous replied, turning to leave. However, at that moment, his waist suddenly twisted 180 degrees, and with lightning speed, the lightsaber in his hand swept directly across Count Dooku's chest. Count Dooku seemed to have a premonition. He had a curved lightsaber in his hand and managed to parry one of General Grievous's lightsabers with his own. His cunning move disrupted General Grievous's offensive. But General Grievous did not stop. His hands expanded into 4, each holding a lightsaber. 4 hands and 4 lightsabers slashed at him at a speed beyond the reach of the naked eye. One strike after another, like a raging storm with no end in sight. Count Dooku's movements were graceful and precise, with one hand behind his back and the other using the second sword technique to face the enemy. Although he only had one lightsaber, he steadily blocked General Grievous's attacks. General Grievous did not relent. The wrists of 2 of his hands began to rotate at high speed, and the 2 lightsabers swept over like windmills. During their fierce battle, the tables and chairs in the surrounding Parliament Hall were immediately chopped into pieces. The council members fled in panic. This time, they no longer hesitated and ran towards the outside of the venue. "You must pay for everything you have done to the Kali people. Dooku," General Grievous's voice was full of anger. "You took advantage of the Kali people's sacrifices. You also used me. Now, this is revenge from Hilal." Chapter 1929, The End of the Confederation of Independent Systems 3. Revenge? Hehe. "The name Hilal is very strange," Count Dooku said mockingly. "Maybe you don't care about this name, but for me, for the Kali people, this name means everything." General Grievous did not rush forward but walked slowly, maintaining a measured distance from Count Dooku. "You murdered Jumanji Hilal and deprived the Kali people of their future. Hilal's death left the Kali people unable to resist the Huck." "Oh, but you're doing pretty well now, aren't you?" "Along with the Geth who kill lives for fun," Count Dooku mocked. "But this has nothing to do with you, does it?" General Grievous retorted in the same tone. I finally understand. So this is all the Death Angel's idea. Count Dooku's eyes were extremely cold. He gave me a chance to do what I wanted to do, General Grievous said coldly. So, what about killing Einlatim? If you just came to me for revenge, then you didn't have to kill him, Count Dooku snorted coldly. Einlatim, if your plan succeeds and you kill me, then Einlatim would become the leader of the Confederation of Independent Systems. This is probably why the Angel of Death asked you to kill him. The first heir to the Confederation of Independent Systems was previously the governor of the Trade Federation, Nute Gunray. However, now Nute Gunray has gone to Tang Xiao's camp. Although he still openly supports the Confederacy of Systems, in reality, the Trade Federation's major investments have left Confederacy territory. Under such circumstances, it is naturally impossible for Nute Gunray to continue as the heir to the Confederation of Independent Systems. This matter had not been stated openly before, because once it was, it would be equivalent to recognizing the independent galaxy and admitting the Confederacy was divided. So after that, it became a matter of course that Einlatim would become the heir to the Confederacy after Count Dooku. General Grievous actually had nothing to do with Einlatim, and there was no conflict between the two parties. But now he walked in and killed Einlatim directly after a disagreement. Count Dooku, a seasoned veteran, could naturally tell that there must be someone behind the scenes. Who is behind it? Those who participated in the murder and transformation of Jiman Jai Hilal back then were Count Dooku and Thornhill, with Tang Xiao as the insider. Thornhill naturally does not have the IQ or courage to dare to do anything to General Grievous. So who is behind it? The answer is very clear. The Confederacy of Independent Systems should never have existed from the beginning. This is a regime based on lies and deceit. What you have done is just to use our outer ring planets as tools to satisfy Darth Sidious's ambition. General Grievous shouted angrily. It seems that the Angel of Death has told you a lot, Count Dooku said coldly. But have you thought about one question? His face gradually showed sarcasm. Even if the Confederation of Independent Systems is based on lies and deception, it is the only chance for you primitive people in the Outer Ring to get the so-called freedom. Do you know why so many planets, even though they know how powerful the Galactic Republic is, still flock to join the Confederacy? Do you know why, no matter how harsh the Confederacy's war tax is, none of these planets withdraw? Faced with the scene at this moment, Count Dooku finally stopped hiding it. He revealed his deep inner disgust for these outer ring non-human race planets. But in fact, in the end, you still can only accept the ending of destruction. I have tried my best to give you a chance to survive, but now it is you who have thrown this opportunity away. And this is why you must die. General Grievous's eyes flashed fiercely, and he suddenly charged in at high speed, slashing head-on with 4 crossed lightsabers. Count Dooku had enough time to regain his composure, and his lightsaber strikes became precise once more. General Grievous's ferocious assault was immediately neutralized. With a sarcastic tone, Dooku remarked, I am indeed curious. Who gave you the confidence to think you could kill me? Dooku, today, you must die here. General Grievous roared. As his roar echoed, the ceiling of the Parliament Hall suddenly shattered, and more than a dozen IG-100 guard droids descended from above. Boom, boom, boom. The heavy bodies of the droids hit the ground with a series of dull thuds. Upon landing, the IG-100 guard droids immediately drew the high-voltage electrostaffs from their backs and activated them. A strong current surged from both ends of the 2-meter-long staffs. You! Count Dooku's face darkened. This time, he didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, his lightsaber striking out like a venomous snake. He employed the second form of lightsaber combat, Makashi, a style that emphasizes precise thrusts and is highly effective in duels. For the first time in this battle, Count Dooku took the initiative. The appearance of the IG-100 guard droids signaled a dire situation. General Grievous advanced, brandishing 4 lightsabers, but Dooku dismantled his offensive with just a few precise strikes. In a flash, one of Grievous's arms was pierced and then severed by Dooku's lightsaber. Realizing the tide had turned against him, General Grievous turned and fled. The IG-100 guard droids followed, their high-voltage electrostaffs crackling with energy. These staffs, made of frick steel, could withstand the heat of a lightsaber to some extent and deliver powerful electric shocks. However, despite their formidable weapons, the droids were no match for Count Dooku. He moved with such speed that his hand was barely visible. All that could be seen was the flash of his blood-red lightsaber, and the IG-100 guard droids fell one by one. Each fallen droid had a molten hole in the center of its head. These battle droids, designed specifically to combat Jedi Knights, were powerless against Count Dooku. General Grievous continued to flee, but more IG-100 guard droids joined the fray, their numbers swelling to over 30. Additionally, a large number of B-2 super battle droids began pouring in through the entrances and windows of the hall. With the cover of these droids, General Grievous maintained a safe distance from Count Dooku. He was not a reckless warrior, but a cunning general. Observing the scene, Count Dooku realized this was not a mere betrayal by General Grievous. It was a meticulously planned mutiny. More and more B-2 super battle droids flooded into the Parliament Hall, their blaster rifles firing incessantly. Count Dooku fought valiantly, but in the confined space of the hall, he couldn't evade the relentless onslaught. Several rockets were launched at him. Sensing the danger, Dooku raised his hand, and the rockets froze in midair. With another wave, he redirected them towards the wall behind him. Boom, boom, boom. The violent explosions filled the hall with smoke and dust. In the chaos, Count Dooku's lightsaber slashed through the air, sending out more than a dozen sword rays. Using the Force, he unleashed a powerful impact that shattered the wall. He dashed through the newly created opening. However, what awaited him outside was an even more desperate scene. More than a dozen destroyer droids were already in position, their weapons trained on him. Count Dooku rolled over and spread out his body. The shield generators activated, and two twin blaster machine guns pointed coldly in his direction. Realizing that Count Dooku had not used the door but had blasted through the wall, the robots turned and rushed towards him. In the sky, a C-9979 landing ship flew by at low altitude, landing around the Parliament venue and transporting a large number of combat robots. General Grievous had brought an entire army to kill Count Dooku. The biggest question now was, why was this army here? What happened to the defense fleet outside the planet? What about the early warning outpost? What about the intelligence services? Even if there had been any news, Count Dooku would have had a chance to escape. But now, he was surrounded. Dooku, today is the day of your death. It is also the end of the Confederation of Independent Systems. General Grievous declared as he walked out of the hole in the wall that Count Dooku had just blown up. It will never be possible to kill me. How could I die at the hands of someone like you? Count Dooku roared angrily. He looked down at his communicator and found that the communication had been cut off. This was planetary-level wide-area electronic interference. In the outer orbit of the Laxus subplanet, a defense fleet composed of more than a dozen capital ships was currently pointing the bow of the ship towards space, guarding against enemies from outer space. Planet Laxus, completely normal. Strength and defend. Our enemies are outside. On the bridge of a Shenyi-class destroyer serving as the flagship, Admiral Trench held a pointer, patting it gently while habitually stroking the chelicerae at the corner of his mouth. Roger, the T-Series tactical robot standing next to him, replied with a cold electronic voice. Block the hyperspace channel. No one is allowed to enter. Admiral Trench ordered, turning to the console on the other side. Roger, Roger. The B-1 combat robot, controlling the radar sensor, responded immediately. At the same time, several spaceships took off from the hangar platform, carrying hyperspace blockers, and began to deploy around the planet. This defensive fleet ignored the mutiny occurring at the planet's Parliament meeting place, instead blocking the periphery of the planet to prevent any spacecraft from entering. At the entrance of the Parliament venue, the congressmen were surrounded by countless combat robots. They squatted on the ground, shivering. At this time, Claire Underwood, Minister of the Interior of the Confederation of Independent Systems, stood up. Parcel Argent, Chairman of the Enterprise Alliance, also stood up. They looked at each other without saying much, then walked towards the robots and left under heavy guard. The wall had fallen, and everyone pushed. With the defeat of the Confederation of Independent Systems determined, it only needed a few pre-deployed chess pieces to stand up and set an example, and countless others would naturally follow. Moreover, despite many reforms to allow ordinary people to join the army, the proportion of combat robots in the army still exceeded 70%. In such a situation, whoever controlled the robots could easily launch a mutiny of the robot army. As for the Confederation of Independent Systems, facing its doomsday, once a mutiny occurred, it was impossible for other participating planets and even high-level officials at all levels to stand up and accompany the Confederation of Independent Systems to its death. Count Dooku became a loner, the person who controls the robots. Count Dooku gritted his teeth, anger almost emanating from his eyes. Newt Gunray. More battle robots came to kill, but Count Dooku, who was already in the vast space outside, relied on the terrain to keep moving around, wandering among countless battle robots. Robots swarmed the battlefield, and the lightsaber in Count Dooku's hand moved like a venomous snake, destroying more and more of them. But General Grievous had anticipated this scenario and had mobilized over 100,000 combat robots. He was determined not to give Count Dooku any chance of survival. As he had declared, Count Dooku must die today, and with him, the Confederacy of Independent Systems must fall. As the battle raged on, Count Dooku's physical strength began to wane. He panted heavily, almost ceasing to use the Force Wave, a basic yet effective technique for dealing with large numbers of robots, just to conserve his energy. Despite his exhaustion, the lightsaber in his hand remained steady, each strike precise and deadly. Seeing Count Dooku's weakened state, General Grievous rejoined the fray. He charged forward with more than a dozen IG-100 guard robots surrounding Count Dooku. Now, with his strength nearly depleted, Count Dooku could no longer fend off General Grievous as easily. He swung his lightsaber, skillfully blocking Grievous's attacks with precise and cunning swordsmanship, but he was forced to retreat under the relentless assault. In the distance, a BX special combat robot armed with a sniper rifle had locked onto Count Dooku. It fired a shot, and Dooku, his reflexes slowed by exhaustion, was unable to dodge in time. The shot struck his shoulder, causing him to lose his balance. In that moment of vulnerability, General Grievous's lightsaber pierced his abdomen. End of chapter. Chapter 1930, The End of the Confederation of Independent Systems, 4. Count Dooku looked down at his abdomen in disbelief, then up at General Grievous. Using his last strength, he slashed out with his lightsaber, severing General Grievous's arm. General Grievous did not pursue the victory. He simply took a step back and coldly observed his dying opponent. Count Dooku's body weakened, and he knelt on one knee. His trembling hand covered the wound on his abdomen, while his other hand still gripped his lightsaber tightly. He maintained this posture until he succumbed to his injuries. General Grievous then stepped forward and squatted in front of Count Dooku's body. He slowly removed the metal mask with a piece missing from his face, placed it in front of the body, and chanted an ancient Kali people's ballad. A black Belgrab 22 fighter jet landed from the sky. The cockpit opened, and a robot pilot jumped out and stepped aside. General Grievous stood up, took one last deep look at Count Dooku's body, turned around, and jumped into his own soulless fighter. He started the engine and took off. At that moment, a burst of strong electric sparks erupted from the heads of the 100,000 combat robots who had participated in the mutiny. Billowing smoke followed, and these robots fell to the ground like puppets with their strings cut, ceasing to move. General Grievous piloted his fighter jet out of the outer orbit of the planet where Admiral Trench was stationed. He headed to the spaceport to join the Destruction-class battleship, then led a fleet consisting of 1 Destruction-class battleship and 10 Generous-class frigates towards Hutt space. Meanwhile, according to Count Dooku's previous instructions, the battleship Carnage, which had been sent to the planet Felucia to use the Dragon's Breath to wipe out all life, had been forgotten. The robot operator aboard the Carnage still faithfully carried out Count Dooku's final combat order and flew towards Felucia. Even though the Destruction-class battleship that was supposed to meet them halfway did not arrive, the Carnage continued on its mission alone. Upon entering Felucia's orbit, the Carnage, following preset combat instructions, broke into synchronous orbit and fired the Dragon's Breath. It ignored the Imperial-class Star Destroyer that came to defend the planet and was eventually hit. Fortunately for the residents of Felucia, the Carnage was quickly surrounded and attacked by 10 Imperial-class Star Destroyers. As a result, the Dragon's Breath only fired one shot, infecting only the capital area of the planet with a viral infection. Because the capital district had faced fighting before, most civilians had been evacuated, so only about 600,000 people died in this disaster. After the Galactic Empire army occupied Felucia, they immediately began to clean up the remaining viruses spread by the Dragon's Breath and eliminated ecological hazards. This was one of the few good deeds the Galactic Empire had done. At the same time, in the meeting room of Dawn Planet's Grand Duke's mansion, dozens of figures were projected in the holographic display. The Fourth Group's top director, Gross Shelby, Trade Federation Governor Newt Gunray, Interstellar Banking Association Co-Chairman San Hill, Enterprise Alliance Chairman Parcel Argent, Protoss Zalakas, the leader of the Silak tribe, and leaders of the core races such as the Visaris, Jivins, Solarians, Samiras, and Vathians, as well as General Ling, Volgograd Kanedi, Chief of General Staff Chijian, and Navy Commander-in-Chief Matt Horner were all present. The people attending the meeting were all powerful and influential figures in the Principality of Dawn, capable of influencing the lives and deaths of hundreds of millions with just a few decisions. And now, these people were gathered. In the grand conference room, all eyes were fixed on the person seated at the head of the table, Duke Li Ming, also known as Tang Xiao. The Principality of Dawn had not convened a summit of this magnitude in a long time. This extraordinary meeting was called in response to a monumental event that had the potential to shake the entire galaxy, the disbandment of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. This plan had been initiated by Count Dooku following the Battle of Naboo in 32 BBY. Through relentless lobbying, he managed to rally a significant number of outer and mid-rim star systems that were discontented with the Galactic Republic. Initially, this movement was known as the Separatist Movement. Over the course of 10 years, the movement grew exponentially, with tens of thousands of star systems joining and forming secret agreements with Count Dooku. By 22 BBY, Count Dooku and the core members officially signed a declaration on the planet Geonosis, establishing a regime independent of the Galactic Republic, the Confederacy of Independent Systems. The Galactic Republic responded swiftly, declaring war on the Confederacy and launching a surprise attack on Geonosis, thus igniting the massive civil conflict known as the Clone Wars. The war spread across the entire galaxy, with the Confederacy's military forces at one point threatening the inner rim of the Milky Way. Even the Delon Galaxy, the gateway to the core worlds, came under attack. However, the Galactic Republic, leveraging its vast industrial capacity, nearly limitless population, and an economy far superior to that of the Confederacy, managed to push back the separatist forces. The Confederacy was forced into a defensive stance. During this period, the Dawn Planet expanded its territories significantly and declared the establishment of the Principality of Dawn in 20 BBY, with Tang Xiao becoming the Grand Duke. Simultaneously, Count Dooku officially assumed the role of head of the Confederacy, marking a shift in the nature of the conflict from a galactic civil war to a life-and-death struggle between sovereign entities. Despite this, the Galactic Republic, plagued by internal strife, was unable to maintain its cohesion. Under the machinations of Speaker Palpatine, the Republic was reorganized into the Galactic Empire. The Galactic Republic was the first to falter under the strain of the war. Subsequently, Duke Tang Xiao of Dawn negotiated a separate peace with the Galactic Empire, withdrawing from the conflict. This left the Confederacy, led by Count Dooku, to make its final stand in the eastern regions of the galaxy. The war dragged on for another 4 years. With the fall of Salukami, the Confederacy's last line of defense, it became clear that the Confederacy could no longer sustain the war effort, and defeat was inevitable. In a surprising turn of events, the final blow to the Confederacy did not come from the Galactic Empire, but from within. General Grievous, the former supreme military commander of the Confederacy, launched a sudden mutiny, He raided the capital subplanet of Laxus and assassinated Count Dooku, the head of the Confederacy. Chapter 1931. The End of the Confederation of Independent Systems, 5. After Count Dooku was killed in the mutiny, General Grievous quickly fled to the chaotic Hutt space with a small fleet, including the Destruction-class battleship, the last super battleship of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. To make matters worse, during the mutiny, General Grievous also killed Ainultim. This directly led to Count Dooku's death, and not a single person from the Confederacy of Independent Systems stepped up to clean up the mess. No one. None of those who survived the mutiny were willing to accept the Confederacy as a hot potato. Initially, some congressmen wanted to elect Pernudo, the chairman of the Super Communications Group, to take over as the head of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. However, Pernudo was not a fool. Whoever became the head of state would be attacked by the Galactic Empire. It was tantamount to seeking death. So, the next day, Pernudo announced that the Super Communications Industry Group would withdraw from the war and be willing to accept the punishment of the Galactic Empire. He took away a lot of wealth and money and went to the Galactic Empire to bribe officials to find a way out for himself. In addition, core members such as Parcel Argent and Claire Underwood fled one after another. Even Admiral Trench, who was responsible for the defense of the Laxus subplanet, also took the fleet away. For a time, the Confederacy of Independent Systems couldn't find anyone to lead the overall situation. As a result, after much debate, the members of the Confederacy of Independent Systems elected a member named Spar to become the head of state. Spar was a congressman from a small and inconspicuous planet. After he was promoted to the position of head of state, he had no ability to clean up the mess. Consequently, he was assassinated in a riot within 2 days. Now everything was in complete chaos. The administrative machinery of the Confederacy of Independent Systems was paralyzed. Officials at all levels surrendered and fled, and daily administrative work could no longer be carried out. Beginning on the 3rd day after Count Dooku's death, those remaining systems that were still loyal to the Confederacy of Independent Systems no longer received even a single administrative order from the Laxus subplanet. From this point on, although no one stood up to announce it, the Confederacy of Independent Systems had, in fact, completely collapsed. However, a very strange situation emerged at this time. Although the administrative core of the Confederacy of Independent Systems had completely collapsed, many of the participating planets did not declare independence. Instead, they continued their usual activities, still defaulting to the fact that the Confederacy of Independent Systems existed. As Count Dooku had said before, no matter how bad the Confederacy of Independent Systems was, it still gave a little hope to those desperate outer ring galaxies. Even with Count Dooku dead and the Confederacy of Independent Systems collapsed, that glimmer of hope still existed. These planets still held on to the last illusion and wanted to seize this glimmer of hope. The Confederacy of Independent Systems has completely become history, Tang Xiao said in a deep voice. This means a very serious reality for us, that the Galactic Empire has no other enemies, and their spearheads will be pointed directly at us. The finances of the Galactic Empire cannot support the continuation of the war. We are safe in the short term, Prime Minister Francis Underwood said. His wife, Claire Underwood, the former administrative minister of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, had returned to the Dawn planet and stood beside Francis. Claire's appointment would be issued in a few days. She would serve as the deputy governor of the Haven sector, preparing to replace Governor Graham, who was expected to. In a few years, I plan to retire. But even if there is no formal war, the Galactic Empire will definitely attack us secretly in all aspects. The Galactic Empire has invested a lot of resources in intelligence. If they focus their power on us, our intelligence and security work will face a severe test, said National Security Agency Director Peggy Carter. Minister of Military Intelligence and Solarian native Saraton Moss added, "We can take the initiative to invest in and support the resistance movement behind the Galactic Empire, thereby diverting their energy." Tang Xiao nodded. "This is essential work and will be the focus of our future efforts. The Galactic Empire's rear is unstable. with resistance movements and uprisings occurring almost daily. We need to ensure that the Empire expends its main power, putting out these flames of resistance. Is this what you often call a spark? General Ling asked. Yes and no, Tang Xiao replied. Our Kingdom of Dawn will face the most severe threat yet. Even during the Clone Wars, the pressure we faced was not as great as it is now. The resistance movement behind the Galactic Empire is just beginning. Until they become a significant force, we will be the ones bearing the brunt of the Galactic Empire's pressure. No matter what, now that Count Dooku is dead, I think we can immediately announce his crimes and expose his collusion with Darth Sidious to push the Confederacy of Independent Systems into war. This way, we can re-establish our banner and gain the allegiance of the remaining galaxies of the Confederacy. Newt Gunray, the governor of the Trade Federation, said proudly. To be honest, even Tang Xiao didn't know why Gunray was so happy. Perhaps it was because he felt that with Count Dooku dead, he had escaped a similar fate. Or maybe he believed his status in the Principality of Dawn would be higher than in the Confederation of Independent Systems. If we do this, it will make the Galactic Empire regard us as an even greater threat. It's hard to say whether they will take more dangerous actions. Chief of General Staff Chi-Jan shook his head. According to our plan, we will place all the blame on General Grievous, and Count Dooku will be portrayed as a hero who fought to the death for the freedom of the galaxy. His collusion with Darth Sidious will be buried forever. Claire Underwood stood up. This matter has been arranged. I will secretly organize a group of planetary counselors to hold a public memorial for Count Dooku in their own names and denounce General Grievous's mutiny. After this, the Laxus subplanet will remain silent, neither surrendering nor resisting. If the Galactic Empire's fleet arrives, it will take its course. There is no armed resistance, but you use your silence to express your determination to fight for freedom to the end. A very good plan. As the administrative capital of the former Confederacy of Independent Systems, the Laxus subplanet will influence many who are still in the Confederacy. The flame of resistance cannot be extinguished because of the surrender of the Laxus subplanet. Helmut Zemo, the chief minister of the cabinet, nodded in agreement. Chapter 1932, We Have Grown Up. Tang Xiao looked around at the members participating in the meeting. The power of the people standing here now was much stronger than at the last meeting of the Federation of Independent Systems. His eyes were sharp, and he understood one thing. The fourth civilization had grown up. 20 years had passed since 35 BBY. The fourth civilization started with a single mothership, about 100 of the first awakened crew members, and Tang Xiao as the manager. It had now developed into a giant entity with more than 2,000 habitable planets and a population exceeding 800 billion. From the blade fighters that were barely more than toys at the beginning, they now had hundreds of kilometer-class battleships. From a few thousand live-fire assault rifles, they had grown into a comprehensive army equipped with powerful mechas, tanks, and combat robots. From struggling to start a small company and bribing officials to expedite approvals, they now had major super-corporate giants willing to support them with just one order. Tang Xiao remembered the excitement of earning more than 10,000 Upi coins from a mercenary mission. Now they had their own independent currency and financial system, with trillions of money circulating at any given time. From needing a T-850 bodyguard, Tang Xiao now commanded organizations like Ghost Academy and Twilight Oath, filled with powerful individuals. In the early stages, Tang Xiao had to personally go into battle. Now, he had super-famous generals like Severance Tan commanding powerful fleets through the nebula. Yes, they had grown up. In the early stages of development, Tang Xiao committed himself to Hago Damask II, even risking his life and property for development opportunities. Later, he joined the Galactic Republic, surviving among major forces, groveling before high-ranking nobles, congressmen, and officials. He then joined the Confederation of Independent Systems to fight against the powerful Galactic Republic. After that, he abandoned separatism and surrendered to the Galactic Empire for peaceful development opportunities. The fourth civilization had grown through constant changes, bloody battles, and relentless striving. Now, no one in the entire galaxy could protect them. Hago Damask II had long been killed, the Galactic Republic destroyed, and the Confederation of Independent Systems disbanded. The only enemy left for the Galactic Empire was them, the Fourth Civilization, the Principality of Dawn. Starting today, the Galactic Empire would use all its resources and power to disintegrate, subvert, and destroy the Fourth Civilization. No one could help them. Everything depended on themselves. After 20 years of hard work, it was now time to face the ultimate test. On the surface, the Principality of Dawn was still part of the Galactic Empire, but everyone at the top knew that the other party was their biggest enemy. The peace on the surface was just a cover for both sides to accumulate strength. The secret war underground had already begun, paving the way for a future decisive battle. When the two sides finally decided to break up, the flames of war that would erupt would be the most terrifying the galaxy had ever experienced. This would be a war that determined the future of the galaxy. Bang! Tang Xiao clapped his hands on the conference table, stood up, and looked around at everyone. He spoke slowly. From the second I opened my eyes in the hibernation cabin, I was very sure. The vast universe is my only limit. I have never considered settling in a corner, nor would I ever stand still. Even if the road ahead is long and dangerous, I will walk it without hesitation. If steel nails pierce the soles of my feet, I will wear iron shoes. If thorns scratch my skin, I will don armor. If an enemy appears before me, I will cut him into pieces. A terrifying golden light shone in Tang Xiao's eyes. I do not claim to like war, but I am not afraid of sacrifice. I will never accept mediocrity. Even death is better than a mediocre existence. From the first day you called me the manager, the fate of the Fourth Civilization embarking on this path of hegemony was sealed. Perhaps in the beginning, people had no choice, but now, those who stand with me have made the same choice. Bang! He clapped his hands on the table, his eyes blazing. When you called me manager, I accepted it, but it doesn't mean I liked it. When I became governor, I remained silent because it was just the first step. Now you call me Grand Duke. Is this the end? No. I will become the king. I will become the emperor. I will rule this galaxy and extend my iron and blood-stained hands to every corner of the universe. And you will also achieve whatever you desire on this path of hegemony. After saying that, he sat down slowly, crossed his legs, and his tone became very relaxed. Some say that the Confederacy of Independent Systems is destroyed, and they ask what we should do. But I tell you, now, the only ones blocking our path to hegemony are the Galactic Empire. Chief of General Staff Qijin stood up suddenly, his voice filled with excitement. Long live the Fourth Civilization. Long live Tang Xiao. He had followed Tang Xiao the longest and resonated deeply with his thoughts. At this moment, he couldn't help but stand up and shout. Matt Horner, General Ling, Helmut Zemo, Gross Shelbia, and others who shared Tang Xiao's vision of hegemony also stood up and shouted, Long live the Fourth Civilization! Long live Tang Xiao! However, more peripheral figures like Newt Gunray and Thornhill stood there trembling, frightened by the fervor and intensity of the shouting and fighting. They had experienced the passion led by Count Dooku against the Galactic Republic, but the meeting on the planet Geonosis paled in comparison to the fanaticism now. This was a fanaticism that embraced hegemonism, military doctrine, and totalitarianism as beliefs. From now on, there would be no more cover-ups, no more lies. It was a matter of life and death, a consensus long reached by both sides. The demise of the Confederacy of Independent Systems was the fuse that ignited this fire. Destroy the Galactic Empire, conquer the galaxy, starting today, Tang Xiao declared, a ferocious look on his face. Chapter 1933. Her Royal Highness the Princess sang. In the inner ring of the Milky Way, on the planet Alderaan, Counselor Bail Organa sat on the balcony, basking in the morning sunshine while flipping through a secret document. Despite the beautiful morning and fresh air, the contents of the document cast a shadow over his mood, making his expression increasingly grim. A middle-aged woman, around 40 years old, approached him. She was elegantly dressed, with black hair tied behind her head and a faint glow emanating from her chest. She gently placed her hand on Bail Organa's shoulder and said, Showing such a scary expression so early in the morning is not good for your whole day, Mr. Congressman. A happy smile appeared on Bail Organa's face. He raised his hand to hold the delicate hand on his shoulder, shook his head, and said, "I can't make myself happy, my dear." This woman was Breha Organa, the Queen of Alderaan and Bail Organa's wife. She sighed and asked, "What's troubling you?" "Planet Rada," Bail Organa replied, handing her the document. "The Imperial Ministry of Agriculture is planting high-energy crops there without fertilizing the land. If this continues, the planet will become barren. The farmers are resisting, and it has escalated into an armed conflict." "This sounds like the despicable behavior of the Minister of Agriculture," Breha Organa said coldly. "In their view, there are countless insignificant planets like Rada in the galaxy. They think there's no need to use fertilizers there. The starving people will naturally become fertilizer for the land, and in a few hundred years, Rada will become fertile again." "That's why the resistance on Rada is inevitable," Bail Organa said. "The Empire believes that sending an Imperial-class Star Destroyer will solve all problems." Breha Organa turned over the document. "It seems they did send one, a Victory-class Star Destroyer. The Imperial military would rather spend on expensive fuel than give even the slightest hope to Rada. If they had sent a transport ship full of fertilizers instead, the riots would have stopped. But alas, the people on Rada probably won't hold on for long." Bail Organa shook his head and helped his wife flip through the information again. "No, their resistance is well organized and has caused significant trouble for the Imperial Army. Otherwise, the Navy wouldn't have sent a Star Destroyer." Queen Breha frowned, thinking for a moment. "At least this gives us some time, which is a small blessing." Bail Organa said, "I am already working with Councillor Mon Mothma. Tomorrow, we will submit a motion to the Emperor through the Parliament, proposing a gentler approach to the Rada problem." "The chances of it passing are slim," Queen Breha said, shaking her head. "As long as we can find a scapegoat to give Palpatine a reason to step down, the situation might improve. We will also impeach the agricultural officials of Rada for not following natural laws and modifying the agricultural plan without authorization, causing Rada to fail its agricultural production targets," Bail Organa explained. "Well, I will prepare our planet. If the situation cannot be alleviated, we will accept as many refugees from Rada as possible," Queen Breha said. As they were discussing, a clear and sweet voice interrupted. "Mom! Mom! I found something! Good news in the West Garden! Go and see! Go and see!" A pure and cute little girl, wearing a snow-white princess dress and adorned with beautiful hair accessories, came running over. She looked only 3 years old, and her eyes sparkled with liveliness. Seeing the girl approach, the gloom on the faces of Bail Organa and his wife instantly vanished, replaced by happy smiles. Bail Organa stood up, hugged the girl, and spun her around 3 times. "Oh, our princess is here." At that moment, a clumsy robot followed behind, saying while chasing, "I'm sorry, Your Majesty the Queen, sir. As soon as Princess Leia saw the fish pond, she screamed and ran away. My mobility is not flexible enough to catch up with her." This adorable little girl was Leia Organa, the daughter adopted by the Organa couple. The Organas had adopted many orphans who survived the war, and Leia was just one of them. However, she was the most special and beloved because she was the daughter of Padme Amidala and Anakin Skywalker. Her real name was Leia Skywalker, though neither she nor others knew this. To everyone else, Leia Organa was just one of many adopted orphans. Bail Organa put Leia down, squatted to her level, and said with a smile, "I guess you saw the new fish pond in the West Garden, right?" Yes, there are so many fish in it. So many." Leia gestured excitedly. "But those fish all look so ugly. Not only ugly, but also fat." "Ha! That's because those are not ornamental fish but breeding fish," Queen Borgia explained, laughing. "This is a new species developed by a fish farm. They have a short growth cycle, delicious meat, and are easy to cultivate." Leia's face lit up with surprise. "Oh, so these fish are specially for eating. Can I eat them too?" "If you can raise those fish, I will ask the chef to make you the most delicious steamed fish," Queen Borgia promised. Leia's expression turned serious. "Yeah, I will definitely raise these fish. It's good to experience the life of a fish farmer in advance, Leia. But you can't neglect your cultural classes," Bail Organa said sternly. "Yes, I will definitely work hard." Leia nodded sensibly, saluted the Organa couple, and turned to leave with the robot. Queen Borgia's face showed a look of relief. Leia became sensible very early. I'm very happy that she sees becoming the adopted daughter of the planet's royal family as a responsibility rather than a right, Bail Organa said with emotion. As expected of the daughter of Senator Amidala, she is truly outstanding. Chapter 1934, Right of Exploitation. The capital of the planet Alderaan, the city of Aldera, lay just outside the royal palace area. A beautiful and charming woman with long, silky golden hair tied back in a ponytail sat on the grass, gazing lazily at the palace not far away. She wore a casual sports outfit, and her face was marked by a relaxed expression. Ah, this is it. The palace of the planet Alderaan, she mused, taking a piece of bubblegum from her pocket. She popped it into her mouth, chewed it, and blew a large bubble that burst with a pop. In my opinion, this place is completely undefended. Don't underestimate the enemy, Nova. The cohesion of Alderaan is not seen on most other planets in the galaxy. Well, except for Dawn, came another female voice from the micro-communicator in her ear. Of course, there is cohesion, highly automated productivity, relatively low taxes, clean administrative bureaucracy, and equal human rights. To a certain extent, this is a perfect utopia, Nova said, her face full of ridicule. But what is hidden behind all this peace? Ice cream? The woman on the communicator replied, clearly uninterested in the topic. Super Lotus, now I'm going to educate you about the mission objectives. Hidden behind this prosperity is privilege. Nova's eyes turned cold. Let me be more specific. It is the ability to legally exploit other middle ring and outer ring planets. Okay, you've successfully piqued my interest. Let's talk about it. After all, during this period, I don't think Alderaan will exploit others, Super Lotus said. The planet Alderaan was one of the first to join the Galactic Republic when it was founded. During the difficult days when the Republic was just beginning to develop, Alderaan played a significant role. In subsequent wars, Alderaan also provided fleets for the Republic, Nova explained. Does this have anything to do with their current situation? Super Lotus asked. Because of their glorious past, the Galactic Republic granted them privileges, Nova said with sarcasm, clearly disgusted. As the Republic expanded and became the overlord of the galaxy, it rewarded these early supporters with privileges. This included extremely low taxes, more parliamentary seats, and more industrial investment. Nova blew another bubble and continued. Officials directly under the Republic have no authority to deal with these planets directly. Even if these planets commit crimes, the Republic cannot act without parliamentary approval. And who controls the parliament? Those privileged planets like Alderaan. Over 25,000 years, their relationships have become so intertwined that one word from them can make countless Republic officials work for them. Unless they openly commit treason like the planet Rendili, the Republic can do nothing against them. So what about exploitation? Super Lotus asked, still indifferent to political topics. The taxes on these privileged planets are reduced, and their privileges increased. To meet their development needs, more planets are forced to provide materials for their use. You're right, Alderaan appears peaceful, and its people seem simple. They don't look like exploiters at all, but they enjoy the materials and privileges that the Galactic Republic exploited for them. Do you understand? This is what is called the right to exploit, Nova explained. Oh, so they don't exploit it themselves. The Galactic Republic does it for them. I understand, but now the Galactic Republic is gone? Super Lotus asked. Lotus asked again. The Galactic Republic has become the Galactic Empire. It's a reorganization, not a revolution. The Galactic Empire will still retain the original administrative foundation of the Galactic Republic. Even Palpatine doesn't dare to easily offend those intricately connected privileged planets and wealthy nobles. After all, he relied on these people to secure his throne. Nova responded. If he antagonizes these people, the economic and industrial foundations of the Galactic Empire will collapse instantly. Sounds Li, Palpatine is quite frustrated, huh? Super Lotus remarked. So, Tang Xiao shared an interesting theory with me, Nova continued. He said that once Palpatine masters absolute power, he won't hesitate to attack these people and truly consolidate all power in his own hands. Nova's tone was cold. The force of the Galactic Empire is now so powerful that it makes people despair. How many Empire-class Star Destroyers have been built? Last year, I hacked into a database at the Kuat Drive yards, and the number displayed was 3,100 ships, and there are nearly 2,000 more on the production line. Super Lotus interjected, "Oh, these privileged planets and wealthy nobles have a heritage of more than 20,000 years. They've seen countless wars. Can a mere star destroyer scare them?" Nova blew another bubble with her gum and boasted, "If you really want to scare these people, you need something like DS1. Bang! Nova popped the bubble herself, then flicked her white fingers, sending the gum accurately into a distant trash can. "Nova, this is top military secret. Can we not talk about this during the mission?" Super Lotus sighed. "Is chatting during the mission allowed?" Nova asked indifferently. "You are chatting, but I've been busy," Super Lotus replied. "Okay, I've blocked the signals of the surrounding guard drones. You can start scanning." Nova picked up the headband eyepiece that was casually thrown beside her, pressed a few buttons, and checked the situation at the Alderaan Palace through the tactical eyepiece. The terrain and guard positions of the entire palace were marked. The Alderaan Palace was very large, and the power of the tactical eyepiece was limited, so the scan had to be done bit by bit. "The shielding effect remains for 30 seconds, Super Lotus reminded. Nova sneered, glanced sideways at a figure walking not far away, put away the eyepiece, and said, "Let's call it a day and continue from another angle in the afternoon." At this moment, a fashionably dressed man walked towards Nova. He was obviously attracted by her beauty. Even his walking posture was light and airy. "Ah, this lady, your beauty is as intoxicating as the stars in the sky. I must say, the first time I saw you, I was deeply fascinated," the man said, producing a bouquet of flowers from behind his back. "To complement your beauty, I specially found golden evening flowers. They are like your blonde hair, lighting up my heart." "Ha ha ha ha. Congratulations, Nova. I'm afraid this guy has even thought of the names of your two sons." Super Lotus laughed on the other end of the communication line. Nova rolled her eyes, looked at the enthusiastic man, and imitated his tone. "Ah, this handsome guy, I am fascinated by your enthusiasm. So I want to say to you." She raised her middle finger very politely. "Get lost!" Chapter 1935, Shocking Kidnapping, Part 1. After 2 days of investigation, Nova and Super Lotus had nearly completed their scan and assessment of the situation at the Alderaan Palace. As an agent, Nova's acting skills and emotional intelligence far surpassed those of Gabriel Tosh. If Tosh had been sent, his fierce demeanor would likely have gotten him eliminated within an hour, as he was already wanted as a potential threat. Nova, on the other hand, disguised herself as a model and tourist, even using her beauty to seduce an enchanted man. He accompanied her around the palace, allowing her to take a closer look inside. The royal family of Alderaan was known for their lack of pretension and minimal red tape, even opening some peripheral areas of the palace for public viewing. This openness was possible due to the planet's great material abundance. Nova believed that Alderaan was an exploiter, which made her indifferent to everything on the planet. Alderaan was essentially an unarmed planet, having signed the Republic Defense Coalition treaties with the Galactic Republic. According to this treaty, the Galactic Republic was obligated to ensure Alderaan's security. Unlike neglected planets, the Republic fleet was required to respond promptly to any threats against treaty-signing planets. After the establishment of the Galactic Empire, the Republic Defense Alliance Treaty was fully accepted to gain support from these planets, placing them under the direct protection of the Imperial Navy. However, Alderaan was not to be underestimated despite being unarmed. As a founding member of the Galactic Republic, Alderaan had a heritage spanning over 25,000 years. With a small population of about 2 billion, the planet was wealthy and had comprehensive security measures. A large number of guard robots and drones patrolled the planet. These drones were designed to appear harmless, resembling chubby beetles or small, clumsy animals, making them difficult to detect. Additionally, bird-shaped drones were prevalent. Though they seemed cute, these drones would immediately respond to any crime with non-lethal weapons like low-power stun guns, tranquilizer guns, and super glue launchers to subdue the perpetrator. For Nova, the thought of being immobilized by super glue and stuck to a wall was a fate worse than death. The cohesion among Alderaa's citizens was strong. Suspicious behavior would prompt pedestrians to report or even confront the suspect. The palace's security measures were frequently updated, and the Fourth Civilization's ongoing conflict with the Galactic Republic had heightened vigilance against stealth technology. Nova needed a foolproof plan that minimized the risk of detection, even without using a cloaking device. Fortunately, they had ample time for this mission. Tang Xiao had instructed that even if it took 10 years, they must kidnap Leia and bring her back. With no rush, Nova and her team chose several infiltration routes, rested for a night, and prepared for action. Nova donned her casual sportswear, sunglasses, and a hat, ready to execute their plan. Nova slightly adjusted her appearance to be less conspicuous and followed Super Lotus's directions to where her equipment was stored. To be honest, I'm still quite curious. How did you manage to send my equipment here? Nova asked as she walked. Frozen fish, Qiao Lianhua replied vaguely. Frozen fish? Nova was surprised. She made her way to the back kitchen of a restaurant, swiftly passing waiters and chefs, and arrived in front of a cold storage unit. This is a deep-sea fish imported from Planet Dark. The meat is delicious but extremely difficult to catch. It's a specialty of this restaurant. Because this kind of fish will deteriorate within an hour once removed from its living environment, but before it deteriorates, it has a top-notch taste. Therefore, fishermen freeze the fish immediately after catching it in the deep-sea environment and never take it out. Because of this, customs do not conduct detailed inspections of ships transporting his fish, Super Lotus explained. Having said all that, you do realize I have to take off my clothes to wear this equipment, right? Nova felt exasperated. Don't worry, with your physical condition, it's totally fine, Super Lotus reassured her with a laugh. Do you think I'm going to beat you up because of my physical condition? Nova rubbed her forehead, but still stepped inside. How about I treat you to ice cream? Can you let me go then? Super Lotus suggested. Don't mention anything frozen. Nova was now standing in front of a 5-meter-long frozen fish. She felt speechless as she saw her beloved stealth combat suit stuffed into the fish's belly. Super Lotus. Veins popped out on Nova's forehead. What? After this mission is completed, you might want to consider defecting to another country. Why? Because as long as you are still in the Principality of Dawn, I will definitely beat you up. Nova took off her sunglasses and hat, throwing them on the ground. An icy chill penetrated her bones, even with her hellishly trained and transformed body, causing her to get goosebumps. But you have to admit that I successfully sent your equipment in, right? You know how high the security level of this core planet is. Super Lotus said nervously. Nova ignored her and unzipped her clothes, taking off her casual sportswear and throwing it on the ground. Now, she was only wearing simple underwear, her delicate and smooth skin clearly exposed. Her long-term training had given her a curvy yet firm and slender figure with perfect muscle and body lines. Her flat belly had no trace of fat, and her slender waist was both soft and strong. The combat underwear made of biological materials could not fully cover her, and the high and soft mass below made the combat underwear sink in. The bone-chilling cold completely surrounded Nova. In this environment of dozens of degrees below zero, an ordinary person would have been frozen to the point of unconsciousness, but Nova remained calm. She raised her feet, kicked off her sneakers one by one, and then pulled off a pair of white socks as thin as cicada wings. Her feet, with graceful arches, stepped on the cold ground. Nova walked directly to the frozen fish, stepping into the boots of the combat uniform first, then putting on the close-fitting combat uniform from the feet up. She added the chest protector and shoulder armor made of light materials. Finally, she attached the small psychic reactor. A faint blue light flashed, and she disappeared into the air. End of chapter. Chapter 1936, Shocking Kidnapping, Part 2. As usual, Leia Organa ran to get fish feed after her cultural class ended and headed to the newly built fish pond to feed the fish. Her exclusive attendant robot, AA2V, designed in a feminine style, quickly followed behind her. Your Highness, you need to change your hairstyle after the cultural class is over. AA2V called out. Leia ignored the robot and ran all the way to the fish pond. She squatted down and gazed at the fish swimming in the pond, almost in a trance. WA2V hurried over, its robotic arm moving at high speed to recomb Leia's hair and change her hairstyle. Leia took out the fish feed from her arms and sprinkled it into the water. Watching the fish gather to grab the feed, Leia clapped her hands in excitement. 2V, look, these fish like me. They're all coming, Leia exclaimed. According to the biological theory in my database, the vision of these fish cannot see us clearly above the water. They are only interested in the fish food. This is an instinctive reaction of organisms, WA2V explained. But it's me who feeds them the fish food, so they must also like me, right? Princess Leia said innocently. Well, I think so, WA2V's program responded, showing a hint of humanity. Leia still had a bag of fish feed in her hand, so she shouted, Lola, come here. Soon, a mechanical beetle flew over from the other side and landed on Princess Leia's shoulder, making a cute sound. This was LA-59, Leia's pet robot. Leia hung the small bag of fish feed on the mechanical beetle Lola and said, There are many fish over there. They also need to be full. The indicator light on the mechanical beetle flashed, and it flew to the other side of the fish pond with the fish feed. So, is this robot what you want me to control? A voice came through the earphones. On the other side of the fish pond, hidden in the shadows under a tree, the invisible Nova watched the mechanical beetle flying around. She lowered her voice and said calmly, Yes, it is this mechanical beetle. Its structure should be very simple. Control it, and then I will have a chance to take down the big robot. Can't I just hack into that big robot? The voice asked. No. That humanoid robot is equipped with very sensitive sensors. Although it cannot hide directly, it can detect me through other means, such as sound. I can't risk getting close to it, Nova explained. I tried it when it was chasing Leia earlier. When I was about 10 meters away from it, its sensor scanned in my direction. It must have noticed. Okay, first you have to be close enough. I can't use too strong an electromagnetic beam, as this may be detected. Also, you have to be careful. There are at least 5 drones patrolling near you. There are 4 other pedestrians, the voice warned. Nova glanced at the people around her. She was invisible and hiding in the shadows, so it was impossible for those people to spot her. But under her powerful telepathy, the superficial thoughts of these pedestrians were immediately read by Nova. 2 pedestrians, Nova sneered. The other 2 are plainclothes guards. All they can think about is where to have a drink after work today. Haha, it's such a stable and peaceful planet. There's a war outside, and they're concerned about their own appetites. Then what are you going to do? From what I've seen, the guards surrounding Princess Leia are nearly impenetrable, the voice said. Not to me, Nova replied, turning to stare at one of the guards with a sneer on her lips. The guard suddenly covered his forehead, his face turning livid, his expression extremely painful. Then he stumbled and fell into the fish pond. The sound of rushing water immediately alarmed everyone around. The guard tried to swim ashore, but the severe pain in his head affected his movements. He flailed and yelled with all his strength, "Help!" Upon hearing the cry for help, the surrounding drones immediately flew in that direction. Princess Leia became anxious and shouted, "So, Mian has fallen into the water. Go rescue them. 2V, go quickly." The robot WA2V comforted her. "Please don't worry, Your Highness. Someone is already on their way. My duty is to protect and take care of you, and I will not leave your side." With the commotion diverting everyone's attention, Nova seized the opportunity. She leaped towards the fish pond and grabbed the mechanical beetle. In a swift, acrobatic move, she flipped midair and shot a rope from her wrist, securing it to a tree on the shore. With agile movements, she swung back to safety. If she hadn't been invisible, her graceful posture in the tight combat uniform would have been a sight to behold, likely stirring admiration. As she passed in front of a guard, he only felt a blur and a breeze. Rubbing his eyes, he saw nothing but a swaying small tree. "All right, we need to move quickly. Plug the data interface in, right here," Super Lotus instructed rapidly. Nova complied immediately. Through the data interface, Super Lotus hacked into the LOLA-59 mechanical beetle remotely, taking control within seconds. By this time, the commotion from the guard falling into the water had subsided, and Princess Leia was calling for Laura from a distance. Nova released her grip, allowing the mechanical beetle to fly over. Simultaneously, a small window popped up in her tactical eyepiece, sharing the beetle's field of view. Leia, suspecting nothing, hugged the mechanical beetle and stroked it, even scolding it for losing the fish feed. Good, now this robot is our spy. Next, we need to deal with the big robot, Super Lotus said. You'd better let this robot carry our Grand Duke's future little wife out on its own. That would save us some trouble, Nova suggested. Ah, I thought you didn't know about that, Super Lotus replied. Well, very few people do, but I happen to be one of them, Nova smiled. But I'm more curious about how you know. Oh, ha. Grand Duke Li Ming set his sights on a 3-year-old girl and tried his best to kidnap her and bring her back as his wife. I wouldn't miss such gossip. Don't forget who I am, Super Lotus said. Then let me tell you something more. Tang Xiao has had his eye on Leia even before she was born. It is said to be a revelation of the Force, Nova added. Ha! Grand Duke Li Ming targeted a 3-year-old girl and blamed the Force to avoid scandal. I like this development, Super Lotus exclaimed. End of chapter. Chapter 1937, Shocking Kidnapping, Part 2. The incident with the guard falling into the water was quickly resolved. The rescued guard reported experiencing a sudden, splitting headache, but had since recovered and had no memory of what happened. He was sent to the hospital for a checkup. Leia, meanwhile, turned her attention back to the fish and eagerly asked the pet robot LOLA-59, known as Lola, to help her throw fish feed. Lola, carrying a bag of fish feed, took on the task, flying over the fish pond and sprinkling the feed bit by bit. However, at that moment, Lola suddenly circled in the air and, without warning, dumped the entire bag of fish feed onto Princess Leia's attendant robot, 2V. Oh, Lola, what are you doing? I can't serve Princess Leia if I smell like fish feed, Due 2V exclaimed. Lola, which lacked a language system, responded through its actions. It immediately flew over, using its mechanical claws to pick the fish feed off WA2V one by one and throw it into the fish pond, as if apologizing. No need to do this, Lola. Okay, I know it was an accident, WA2V said, but now I have to reduce my charging time by an hour to clean up. Despite WA2V's protests, Lola continued to help clean up the fish feed. Okay, once, twice, left, right. Super Lotus, controlling Lola, used the opportunity to repeatedly touch WA2V, probing its data interface, switches, and key components like the power supply. Wait a minute, here, aha, I found it! Super Lotus turned Lola's camera and finally located WA2V's data connection port, hidden under a baffle in the center of its back. Oh, it looks like I just need to respond well, Nova, still hiding in the shadows, said. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, WA2V entered the charging device in the corner of Princess Leia's bedroom. Lola flew up again, this time with a small memory chip in its mechanical claw. It silently approached WA2V and inserted the memory chip. However, WA2V's eyes suddenly lit up with red light. It rushed out, loudly shouting, "Intruder! Intruder! Intruder!" while running around the bedroom. Damn it, there's a problem. There's a second data core inside this robot. Super Lotus was shocked. I'll handle it. You need to cover me. Nova decided quickly, rushing from her hiding place towards Leia's bedroom. Leave it to me. No matter how many backups it has, the things I implanted are no joke. Super Lotus became serious, and the sound of rapid keyboard tapping filled the communication. WA2V's movements became erratic. It started smashing everything in Princess Leia's bedroom, continuously shouting, "Intruder! Intruder!" Princess Leia woke up from her sleep. Despite being only 3 years old, she showed remarkable decisiveness. She circled around the bed, avoiding WA2V, and ran towards the bedroom door. The guards, hearing the commotion, rushed in to protect her. However, WA2V now saw all adults as intruders, swinging its robotic arm wildly. Amidst the chaos, Nova swiftly climbed into the bedroom. The turmoil between the guards and the robot did not hinder her. She nimbly ran forward and picked up Princess Leia. With a slight release of psychic energy, Leia Organa suddenly passed out. Nova's actions led to her exposure. Seeing a figure in the room, the guards turned their attention to her. An obvious stealth combat uniform was holding Leia Organa. Everyone immediately understood that this was a long-planned kidnapping. Suddenly, the entire Alderaan palace was filled with the blaring sound of sirens, and a large number of security personnel and guard drones swarmed in. But Nova was not afraid at all. She pulled out her blaster pistol and fired a few precise bursts, immediately destroying the most threatening drones in the sky. At the same time, her figure flickered and suddenly transformed into 4 identical figures. The 4 Novas ran in different directions, each holding a Leia Organa in their hands. The guard drones reacted quickly, dividing into 4 groups to hunt down the 4 Novas. However, when they cornered the Novas and prepared to arrest them, the figures suddenly turned into a burst of particles and disappeared. These were particle holographic images. 4 holographic images were projected from Nova's combat uniform. Under the influence of magnetic fields and high-energy particles, these holographic images had a certain degree of physicality, capable of deceiving various scanning and probing equipment. Taking advantage of the confusion, Nova escaped from the most dangerous bedroom. As she ran, she called out, "Super Lotus! Think of a way, there are too many drones." Behind her, the drones that had been dealing with the holographic projections began to search around again. Nova, running at high speed, still left a distortion in the air, which the drones accurately detected. After sharing the data, many drones followed her. "Piece of cake! Ha ha!" Super Lotus responded, undeterred by her earlier mistake of underestimating the enemy. Under her rapid operation, some drones suddenly received a large number of conflicting instructions. As a result, some drones began executing those chaotic instructions, flying around erratically and even attacking other drones. Some drones simply crashed and fell, trailing thick smoke. Seizing this opportunity, Nova fired continuously. Her shooting skills were extremely accurate, and she took down several drones one by one. She used this chance to run out of the palace towards the city. A large number of security personnel were already arriving at the scene, driving spaceships and hover vehicles. These were no longer something that blaster pistols could handle. "Location?" Nova asked urgently. Old place. Frozen fish, you know, right?" Super Lotus replied. "That's actually the cargo hold of a spaceship. Didn't you notice?" "Fuck," Nova cursed, hugging Leia tightly and running into the restaurant where she had changed clothes. This time she went on a rampage, opened the cold storage door, and ran in. Fortunately, the refrigeration system in the cold storage had been shut down, and the frozen fish had been moved away. As Nova entered, a spaceship took off directly into the sky. The spaceship turned out to be the second half of the restaurant. Before the defenders could react to blockade the planet, the spaceship had already flown out of the planet's gravitational circle, entered hyperspace, and jumped away. End of chapter. Chapter 1938, Little Prisoner. "What did you say? Leia has been kidnapped?" Bail Organa leaped out of bed upon hearing the news. Queen Borgia Organa quickly followed, hastily putting on a simple piece of clothing as she ran towards Leia Organa's bedroom. The bedroom was in disarray. The attendant robot, WA2V, was in a frenzy, though its actions were purposeful, targeting anyone who entered Leia's room. "There's an intruder! There's an intruder!" WA2V yelled repeatedly, striking anyone who dared to enter with its robotic arm. Despite the chaos, the security personnel hesitated to dismantle WA2V, knowing it was Princess Leia's attendant robot. The situation reached a stalemate. Bail Organa, worried and frustrated, shouted, "Why are you wasting time here? Where is Leia?" "Princess Leia has been kidnapped. We've deployed drones and security to pursue her," a security officer reported. "Then handle this quickly. Use any means necessary," Bail Organa commanded. With permission granted, the security personnel drew their blaster pistols and opened fire on WA2V. Despite the blaster pistol's limited power, the concentrated fire from over a dozen weapons eventually riddled WA2V with holes. The robot sparked, smoked, and finally collapsed. "Send it for inspection and analysis immediately," Bail Organa ordered. "Any news on Leia?" "Nothing yet," came the reply. "Damn it." Bail Organa clenched his fists, his body trembling with anger. Security personnel swiftly removed WA2V's wreckage for testing and began sorting through clues in the bedroom. Report: "The intruders interfered with our security drones and escaped in a spaceship hidden in the restaurant," a security guard announced. Bail Organa's face turned pale. Queen Borgia Organa, maintaining her composure, whispered in his ear, "Should we notify the Imperial Intelligence Agency?" Bail Organa sighed and shook his head. "No. To everyone, Leia is just one of the many orphans we've adopted. If this matter gets too big, the Imperial Intelligence Agency might notice something unusual about Leia. Then I'll follow the normal procedure and report it to the Imperial military. As for Leia, we'll have to hire mercenaries to investigate privately, Bail Organa suggested. Bail Organa nodded silently. He couldn't risk alerting the Imperial Intelligence Agency. If they discovered that Leia was Padme Amidala's child, it could spell disaster for them. Meanwhile, on the spaceship where Princess Leia Organa was held captive, she began to wake up. She opened her eyes and, instead of crying, looked around. Seeing Nova sitting opposite her, she asked, "Auntie, who are you?" Nova's forehead twitched at the term aunt. Forcing a smile, she replied, "I think you should at least call me sister." Leia tilted her head and asked, "Then, sister, why did you take me away?" "I'm taking you to meet a new friend. You'll have a new home," Nova explained. "New friends?" Leia echoed, surprised. "Remember to call him uncle when you meet," Cao Lianhua, sitting on the other side, added sarcastically. Leia lowered her head. Though she didn't cry, her trembling body betrayed her fear. Leia felt a surge of fear. I like the planet Alderaan very much. Can you send me back?" she pleaded. Nova stared at her, feeling an inexplicable irritation. The sight of Princess Leia brought back memories she would rather forget. She snorted coldly. "Planet Alderaan? I think you will never see it again," she said, standing up. "Anyway, be obedient. Your life in your new home will definitely not be worse than on Alderaan." Leia lowered her head, trembling. Despite her efforts to hold back, tears streamed down her face at the thought of never returning to Alderaan. "Cry if you must. You'll feel better once the tears dry up," Nova said, her expression darkening. She turned and walked to the engine room at the back of the spacecraft, leaving Leia out of sight and out of mind. Princess Leia continued to sob silently, her small shoulders shaking. Suddenly, a familiar voice caught her attention. She looked up and saw her pet robot, Lelo Lei 59, right in front of her. "Lola!" Leia cried out, unable to hold back any longer. She hugged Lole 59 tightly and wept. After a while, a white handkerchief was handed to her. Leia wiped her face and looked up. "Thank you," she said politely. Standing before her was a woman with an oriental face, Super Lotus. Unlike the beautiful but cold Nova, Super Lotus seemed more approachable, though not as striking. Super Lotus sat down in front of Leia and smiled. "Don't be afraid, Leia. Nova is actually a good person. I heard that when she was a child, she was also the daughter of a big family. Later, something happened, and she was forced to become an agent." Leia nodded, but her body still shook. Super Lotus moved closer, gently touching Leia's hair. "You know you were adopted by the people of Alderaan, right? We took you away to reunite you with your biological parents." "My biological parents? Do you know them?" Leia asked, her eyes wide with surprise. "Of course we know them. We've had many interactions," Super Lotus replied with a smile, though she was secretly amused. From their cat-and-mouse games during the Civil War on Saria to the hostilities of the Clone Wars, their relationship with Leia's parents had been complex. If Tang Xiao were involved, it would be even more complicated. He had even quarreled with Padme in the Republic Council meetings, and Francis Underwood? He probably had even more disputes. Chapter 1939, Your New Home. Leia finally relaxed a little, stopped crying, and asked proactively, "Then, Auntie, who are my biological parents?" It was Auntie again, and veins were popping out of Cao Linhua's forehead. But then she remembered she was already in her 30s, so she shook her head and didn't pay attention. She simply replied, "Your mother is a very brave and wise person. She combines the bravery of a fighter, the temperament of a leader, and extraordinary wisdom. What's even more valuable is that she is very kind." Although she was not very familiar with Padme Amidala, Tang Xiao spoke very highly of her, so Cao Lianhua copied Tang Xiao's evaluation. "Then, where is my father?" Leia asked quickly. Cao Lianhua smiled bitterly, and the image of a demon-like figure wearing terrifying black armor appeared in her mind. "Your father, you can't know yet." "That's right. If it was Leia's father, it would be a lot of fun. No matter when, before or now, whether it is Anakin Skywalker or Darth Vader, they are one of the biggest enemies of Tang Xiao and the Dawn Planet. I wonder what Princess Leia will think after knowing this." Leia lowered her head in disappointment. "What you said is the same as what my father, adoptive parents, said." "Because this is the truth," Cao Lianhua said. Leia nodded, showing a very forced smile. But it also means you didn't lie to me, Aunt. Chow Lianhua smiled, touched Leia's smooth black hair, and said, That's for sure. By the way, my name is Chow Lianhua. Just call me Lianhua, sister. Well, Sister Lianhua, Leia called her very obediently. She tilted her head and thought for a while, then said, Sister Lianhua, your name is so strange. This is not a name, it is my code name in the army, Chow Lianhua said. People like me can't even have a name. Why? Leia asked. Because a name, it may also be a weakness. Chow Lianhua smiled slightly. The countless light bands outside the window disappeared instantly, and the spacecraft left the hyperspace channel. Princess Leia Organa quickly stood up and leaned in front of the window to see where they had arrived. Outside the ship's window, a huge light blue gas giant planet appeared first, immediately catching Leia's eyes. This planet was so beautiful. There were almost no flaws on the soft star. White clouds were vaguely visible, as if it was a huge pure orb. Immediately afterward, a large number of spacecraft began to appear around. Leia had also taken a spaceship to the outer orbit of the planet Alderaan with her adoptive parents. She had seen the planet, the universe, the spaceship, and the spaceport. However, the number of spaceships she saw on the planet Alderaan was far inferior. Here, not even a tenth. A large number of spacecraft flew in formations, including transport ships, engineering ships, and passenger spacecraft, as well as many merchant ships, exploration spacecraft, and armed spacecraft. You could even see a lot of battleships. This was something you couldn't even see outside the planet Alderaan. These warships were large and small, but the most eye-catching one was a flat warship that was more than 3,000 meters long and was cruising around. Seeing the battleship, Leia's heart suddenly trembled for no reason. She looked over carefully again. The discomfort caused by the battleship was still there, but her young cognition didn't know why. Chow Lianhua came over and said, Are you looking at that spaceship? Oh, that's the Archon-class aircraft carrier. It's a very powerful battleship. Anyway, welcome to Dawn Planet. Planet Dawn. Leia looked out the window. She had heard her adoptive parents talk about this planet. According to them, it was a very dangerous planet and an enemy of the Galactic Empire. Soon, a planet orbiting a gas giant appeared in front of the spacecraft. Around this planet, there were densely packed space facilities, including shipyards, research institutes, space stations, spaceports, and even Gauss defense platforms, hangar platforms, and other space buildings. The number was very large. What was even more eye-catching, a star ring encircled the planet, its iron-gray hue unaltered by modifications. It appeared thick, majestic, and exuded a mechanical coldness. Princess Leia's young body trembled slightly once more. Terrifying. This was her first impression of the planet. Unlike the peaceful Alderaan, the planet before her flaunted its industrial and military might unabashedly. The Dawn planet, merely a satellite of the gas giant Endor, was small in size, necessitating many facilities to be placed in outer space. The entire development plan of the Dawn planet considered the 9 satellites orbiting Endor as a unified whole. This was evident in the numerous space structures and the constant traffic of spacecraft. Unlike the Super Gaia planet, Rendili, where production could be handled internally, Dawn planet relied heavily on its space infrastructure. As the spacecraft entered the atmosphere and began its descent, Princess Leia's expression softened. The familiar blue sky, green land, and mountains came into view, reminiscent of Alderaan. In fact, the natural scenery here was even more beautiful than that of her home planet. Despite its development, Dawn planet had only been evolving for 20 years from a primitive state. Consequently, many industries were still located in outer space, and the urbanization rate was low, preserving much of the natural beauty. However, the shadows of the star rings occasionally crossing the sky served as a reminder of the planet's unique nature. The spaceship landed at a private spaceport atop a towering building. Super Lotus led Princess Leia down, though Nova, seemingly in a bad mood, did not accompany them. At the door of Tang Xiao's office, Super Lotus comforted Leia for a while before letting her go in alone. Leia, holding her pet robot LO-59 Lola, took several deep breaths before mustering the courage to enter. Inside, she saw a tall man behind a massive desk, surrounded by towering stacks of files. Summoning her bravery, Leia spoke, Hello, I'm Leia Organa. Who are you? Tang Xiao put down his work, stood up, and looked at the young princess. He replied calmly, First of all, you are just Leia. The name Organa has disappeared from your life. Chapter 1940, Awakening. Princess Leia's body trembled again. With her current diminutive stature, everything around her seemed towering and unfamiliar, giving her an overwhelming sense of oppression. Fear welled up inside her, and tears began to form in her eyes once more. However, in the next moment, she felt herself being embraced by a broad and warm chest. In this comforting embrace, the surrounding world seemed to shrink back to a manageable size. She heard a calm voice say, You were the adopted daughter of the Organa family, but that is no longer the case. Naturally, you will not use the surname Organa anymore. You must understand one thing. The Organa couple and I have no conflict in protecting you. You protect me? Leia turned to look at the speaker. He had a mature and handsome face, appearing to be around 30 years old. He was slightly thin, with a neatly trimmed beard and a light layer of stubble on his chin and lips. His eyes were sharp, almost intimidating, but there was a faint smile on his lips. Yes, I will protect you. The planet Alderaan does not have the power to protect you. They cannot even protect themselves. If you stay there, you may bring disaster upon them. But I have the power to protect you, Tang Xiao said. From today on, I want you to always remember my name, Tang Xiao. Why would I bring disaster? Princess Leia still couldn't understand. Because of your father, and also because of the Galactic Empire, Tang Xiao replied. Are they bad people? Princess Leia asked. People cannot be simply categorized as good or bad. For now, you just need to know that you are separated from your biological parents because of this reason, Tang Xiao explained. Then, who is my father? Leia asked again. She glanced at Tang Xiao and added, Are you also afraid of him, so you didn't tell me? Tang Xiao smiled and said, When you can truly understand the significance of your father's current name, I will naturally tell you. Princess Leia nodded in understanding. I think I understand. Then, if you brought me here, what do you want me to do for you, Uncle Tang Xiao? A few blue veins appeared on Tang Xiao's forehead. Just call me Tang Xiao. This is the honor I give you. Is it an honor to call you by your name? Leia wondered. Of course, because from today on, in the entire Principality of Liming, you are the only one who has the qualification to call me by my name, Tang Xiao said. During this period, I will send someone to help you familiarize yourself with life here. I will also come to accompany you in my free time. Leia nodded obediently. Chapter 1941, Wake Up. In the southern boundary of the Milky Way, the central star region, on the planet Naboo, a little girl's cries echoed, heartbreaking and sad. No, Padme Amidala suddenly opened her eyes and sat up from the bed, but she felt weak and her body went limp, causing her to fall off the bed. The loud thud immediately attracted the attention of the medical robot and C-3PO, who hurried over. Seeing Padme Amidala lying groaning on the floor, they were not surprised but overjoyed, cheering loudly, Wake up! Wake up! Miss Amidala is awake! Conduct a full-body check immediately and notify medical support. Oh my God, Lady Padme is awake! She's awake! Tell Senator Dome and Senator Organa! C-3PO exclaimed, walking around awkwardly. An hour later, Padme Amidala was sitting on the hospital bed, her body still connected to various medical instruments. However, the breath of life had returned to her face. Although she was much weaker and thinner than before, the determined look had returned to her eyes. Duome, a counselor from the planet Naboo and the former head maid of Padme Amidala, rushed in. When she saw Padme sitting on the bed, she subconsciously wanted to rush to her, but she stopped abruptly. She covered her mouth to prevent herself from crying, but her emotions were evident. Tears fell like a broken bead curtain. Padme, oh Padme, you finally. Padme Amidala forced a smile and said, I seem to hear my daughter's call. She seemed very sad, scared, lonely, and helpless. Dome smiled and reassured her. Don't worry, Leia has been adopted by the Organa couple. She is now living happily on the planet Alderaan, and Luke, Padme Amidala shook her head, interrupting Dome. I know about Luke, don't say it. But Leia, I'm really worried. What is Bail Organa doing now? Have you contacted him? And how is the Republic, the war going? Dome smiled bitterly and shook her head. She approached Padme's bed and gently stroked the back of Padme's hand. "This is a long, long story, Miss Padme. I have contacted Senator Organa, and he will be here soon. Now, would you like to rest first? You have been asleep for too long and need a good recovery." "How long have I been asleep?" Padme Amidala recalled the scene before she fell into a coma at Anakin Skywalker's funeral. 4 years and 7 months. You were in a coma for 4 years and 7 months. Dome's tears flowed again. 4 years, 7 months. Padme Amidala's expression was complicated. She leaned back on the bed and stared at the white ceiling in a trance. "You should have something to eat, Miss Padme." A medical robot brought over a bowl of scientifically prepared, delicious and nutritious porridge, perfect for a patient who has been comatose for a long time. Half a day later, the dusty Bail Organa arrived on the planet Naboo, his face full of exhaustion. Upon seeing Padme Amidala awake, he was extremely surprised, but then his expression dimmed as he remembered something. He shook his head and sighed. "Organa, my friend, I'm glad to see you again," Padme Amidala smiled. "But I failed to live up to your expectations, Padme." Bail Organa walked forward, knelt on one knee in front of the bed, and gently held Padme's hand. Leia, she was kidnapped." Chapter 1941, for the Galactic Republic. "I'm sorry, Padme. I swear I will use my life to bring Princess Leia back," Bail Organa said earnestly. Padme Amidala gently patted the back of Bail's hand and replied, "Tell me." "What?" Bail Organa looked confused. "Tell me everything," Padme insisted. Bail Organa sighed deeply and began to recount the events. They talked well into the evening. After the destruction of the Jedi Order, Palpatine seized all power. 2 armies attacked the Principality of Dawn, but failed miserably. This tragic failure finally caused the Galactic Republic to collapse under its internal conflicts, reorganizing overnight into the Galactic Empire. Following the surrender of the Principality of Dawn, Palpatine's throne became increasingly stable. The Galactic Empire intensified its exploitation of the middle and outer ring areas, concentrating all its wealth in the core circle, and then went to war and prepared for more conflict. The fall of the planet Salukami, the massacre, and the destruction of the Confederation of Independent Systems followed. These earth-shaking changes left Padme Amidala silent. Although her body was extremely weak, the anger in her heart was palpable. She clenched her fists, her body trembling slightly. "We have all been fooled, everyone," Bail Organa said. "This war has given Palpatine so much power, troops, strength. Some even say that the entire war was a manipulated conspiracy. We failed and could only watch helplessly as he destroyed the Galactic Republic and ascended the throne as Emperor." Padme Amidala remained silent, her body trembling. She had not been shaken, even when she heard the news that her daughter had been kidnapped. But now, her face was streaked with tears. "Everything we once swore to protect has become nothing. Palpatine will pay the price," she declared. "Yes, there are still many things we can do. Palpatine spreads terror throughout the galaxy, and his cruel exploitation forces planets that cannot survive to rise up in resistance. His power is immense, and current resistance efforts only increase the sacrifice. Fortunately, you are awake now, which will make us stronger," Bail Organa said. Padme Amidala smiled and nodded. "We still have so much to do. Let's finish it together." "Then, there's Leia." Bail Organa's tone became serious. "We conducted extensive investigations but found very few clues. We discovered a memory on the Squire robot WA-2V, which contained a computer virus. Additionally, the drones that were confused during the pursuit had their communication and command systems cracked in advance, causing their confusion." "I believe you, Senator Organa. You must have tried your best to prevent this from happening, but Leia was still kidnapped. This only shows that the other party knows Leia's true identity," Padme Amidala said. "The kidnapper is invisible. When she broke into Leia's bedroom, she shattered the glass, revealing herself momentarily. 2 of our guards saw some shadows, and with the help of the computer, we restored the appearance of the kidnapper as much as possible," Bail Organa explained. He took out a memory device and retrieved the files inside. The holographic projection displayed a female figure wearing a tight-fitting combat uniform with a notably athletic build. Although her face was unclear, the tactical goggles on her eyes emitted a faint blue light, and her long blonde hair was styled into a single ponytail. Their kidnapping operation also used robots, indicating they have cutting-edge technical capabilities in robotics and computers. Coupled with efficient cloaking devices, this kidnapping case is very likely the work of the Principality of Dawn, Bail Organa said. The deceased angel, Tang Xiao, Padme Amidala, closed her eyes and fell silent. Tomei added, "When Leia was just born, we discovered an issue with R2-D2's actions. Upon inspection, we found that someone had tampered with its program. If we consider this, the kidnappers might have targeted Leia and the others 3 years ago. If I.T. was indeed the Principality of Dawn, what were they planning? The Principality of Dawn probably knew about Leia's background but didn't inform Palpatine. This is very concerning. I have posted a high bounty on the black market and will hire a group of top bounty hunters and mercenaries to rescue Leia. I swear, I will definitely rescue her," Bail Organa declared firmly. Padme Amidala sighed and said, "There is no need to waste money or let those bounty hunters die. Since it is most likely the work of the Principality of Dawn, it is better to go directly to Tang Xiao. Although they are both Sith Lords, Tang Xiao's behavior is different from Palpatine's. If he was really behind this, he wouldn't deny it." Bail Organa nodded thoughtfully. "Congressman Organa, I'm afraid I have to leave this matter to you. I just want to make sure that my daughter is still alive," Padme Amidala said. "Don't worry, I will contact Tang Xiao immediately after I make the necessary arrangements," Bail Organa assured her. As a member of Parliament, Bail Organa had ways to contact Tang Xiao, but the biggest challenge was ensuring that the Imperial Intelligence Department wouldn't find out. Therefore, he had to make preparations to avoid being monitored before contacting Tang Xiao. Padme Amidala added, "As for me, it's better to die." Miss Padme. No, Dome, fearing that Padme might do something drastic again, quickly went up to hug her. "Don't worry, Dome." Padme Amidala patted Dome on the back, then said, "I am no longer a member of Parliament, so I can't fight in the Parliament with everyone like before. In fact, when democracy no longer exists, the fighting in Parliament has become very weak." "You are right, Lady Padme." Bail Organa nodded with a wry smile. Padme Amidala's expression became determined. "I will fight in another way, on another battlefield, as a dead woman." Although her voice was not loud, it was full of power. "I will never forget the oath I made. I will protect the Galactic Republic. Even if the Republic has perished, I will still stand in these ruins, brick by brick, and rebuild the Republic." She clenched her fists. The Galactic Empire and Palpatine are both parasites attached to the Galactic Republic. They absorbed the blood of the Republic and gave birth to that twisted and ugly body. They must be eliminated. As initiators of war, destroyers of democracy, and harmers of living beings. "So you are going to." Bail Organa began to understand what Padme Amidala meant. Padme Amidala said firmly, "Yes, I will raise the flag of resistance. Even if our power is weak, I will fight the Galactic Empire and Palpatine to the end. For freedom, for democracy, for the Galactic Republic." Chapter 1942, The Right to Choose Dawn Planet, Grand Duke's Mansion. Tang Xiao was gently woken up by his assistant due to an urgent communication. The caller was one of the few people Tang Xiao had instructed his assistant to always prioritize, regardless of the situation. Bail Organa, the representative from Alderaan. Seeing the tired and visibly angry congressman on the screen, Tang Xiao smiled lightly and asked, "It's my rest time now. What do you need, Congressman Organa?" "You should know why I'm here, Your Excellency, the Grand Duke of Dawn." Bail Organa's voice trembled slightly, clearly struggling to contain his immense anger. "Oh, so, is Alderaan finally willing to open a trade market for Dawn Planet? Or do you have some valuable items from the core area to share with me?" Tang Xiao responded with a seemingly exaggerated expression of surprise. "That's enough. Tell me, where is Leia?" Bail Organa finally lost his composure, slamming his fist on the table and roaring loudly. An inexplicable smile appeared on the corner of Tang Xiao's mouth. "Oh, you can speak to me with such certainty. That can only mean one thing. Someone's salary this year may not be guaranteed." Meanwhile, on the other side of Dawn Planet. "Sneeze!" Super Lotus sneezed in front of her computer. She rubbed her nose and muttered to herself, "That doesn't make sense. Have I not had enough sleep recently?" Sneeze! Another sneeze came from behind her. Super Lotus turned around suddenly, only to see Nova rubbing her nose and exiting invisible mode behind her, a drop of cold sweat streaming down her forehead. Miss Nova, what are you doing here? And why are you so close to me? Super Lotus asked, puzzled. Of course, please try the frozen fish, Nova replied with a bright smile. The kind where you take off your clothes and stuff them inside. I don't want to beat around the bush with you. Hand over Leia immediately. Bail Organa was furious, and Tang Xiao's evasive answers only confirmed his suspicions. However, Tang Xiao's expression suddenly turned extremely cold. Hand her over? To whom? Leia's biological parents? I promised Leia's mother that I would take good care of her, Bail Organa insisted. The question is, can you do it? Tang Xiao retorted coldly. Do you know who her father is? I know, Bail Organa gritted his teeth. That's why I can't hand her over to you. Tang Xiao's face showed astonishment. You actually know who Leia's father is? That's interesting. So, tell me about this. Based on your answer, maybe I will agree to return Leia to you. Bail Organa frowned. He suddenly felt that things might not be as simple as they seemed. He looked at Tang Xiao and realized that Tang Xiao might know everything. Otherwise, he would never have been able to find Leia alone. Kidnapping a princess from Alderaan, a core planet, would require significant resources. Despite his confusion, Bail Organa decided to tell the truth. Leia's father is the late Jedi Knight, Anakin Skywalker. Leia has the blood of a Jedi Knight. If the Imperial Intelligence Department finds out, there's no way they will let Leia live. Tang Xiao's face relaxed, and he shook his head with a look of pity. It seems like you don't know anything. Let me tell you this, Bail Organa. Even if I think of you as a hero, Tang Xiao said coldly, looking at him sideways, you only have a superficial understanding of what Leia truly means. What will happen to Leia in your care? Maybe she can grow up healthy, have enough food and clothing, and even become the Princess of Alderaan. But so what? She would just waste more than 10 years in your care. What kind of person will she become when she grows up? Maybe the upper limit is another Queen of Alderaan? But he placed his hands on the table and leaned closer to the projection screen. So what? The Queen of Alderaan, in this galaxy, can't change anything. Bail Organa's face was etched with determination. We will risk everything to protect her, he declared, his voice tremor, bling with emotion. Tang Xiao's expression remained cold and unyielding. Is it useful to risk everything? You can't even protect the planet Alderaan, let alone Leia. Bail Organa's face darkened. He wanted to argue, but the image of Emperor Palpatine on the throne silenced him. He knew Tang Xiao was right. Go back and do what you need to do. I think you should have thought this through a long time ago, Tang Xiao said, turning his back. Leia is here with me, and she has a life without worries about food and clothing, an elite education. I can give her more than that. I can give her the power to make choices. You want to train her to be a Sith Lord as evil as you? Bail Organa shouted, his anger boiling over. Tang Xiao remained calm. 3 years ago, I made a choice to negotiate a separate peace with Palpatine and withdraw from the war. Do you know how many battleships were behind my decision? How many soldiers and combat robots supported it? If it were the planet Alderaan, would you be qualified to make such a choice? Bail Organa fell silent, unable to refute Tang Xiao's words. Tang Xiao turned and called out, Leia, come here. Leia came running, holding Laura in her arms. When she saw Bail Organa on the screen, her eyes lit up. Father Organa, are you here to take me home? She asked excitedly. Leia, seeing that you are safe and sound, Bail Organa, usually so strong, was overcome with emotion. It's okay to let Leia return to the planet Alderaan. We'll openly send an envoy to pick her up with gongs and drums. The Dawn planet can even bear all the expenses, okay? Tang Xiao said calmly, his hands behind his back. Bail Organa felt a sharp pain in his heart, as if pierced by a knife. At that moment, he finally understood what it meant to have no choice. Even as a member of Alderaan's royal family, they had no power to make such decisions. Pick up Leia with gongs and drums? The planet Alderaan didn't have the courage or the power to do so. Seeing Bail Organa's hesitation, Princess Leia's eyes filled with confusion. She didn't understand why her beloved adoptive father would hesitate to simply send a delegation. Tears welled up in her eyes. You will take me back, right? Organa, father? she asked miserably, taking a step back. Chapter 1943, Leia's First Lesson. Bail Organa closed his eyes in pain. He shook his head, knelt down, and said softly, Leia, I'm sorry. I can't take you back. Why? Why? Tears streamed down Leia's face uncontrollably. Is it because I'm not good enough? Is it because I'm not smart enough? Is it because Father Organa doesn't like me? No, Leia, you are very well behaved and smart. We love you more than anything. You know, your adoptive mother, Borgia Organa, is sterile, and we treat you as our biological daughter. I would even be willing to hand over the entire planet of Alderaan to you for inheritance. But... A teardrop fell from the corner of Bail Organa's eye. Princess Leia burst into tears again. But Tang Xiao is right. Alderaan cannot protect you. You are truly safe on the planet Dawn, Bail Organa said. No, I don't like it here. I want to go home, to Alderaan. I want to be with my adoptive father and mother. Leia cried. Tang Xiao had been watching silently, his expression cold and unreadable. I'm sorry, Leia. I can't do anything. Bail Organa finally said, his voice breaking. He hurriedly closed the communication, unable to bear Leia's heartbroken expression any longer. Long after the holographic projection in front of him turned dark, Tang Xiao lowered his head and saw that Princess Leia's eyes seemed to have lost their sparkle. She knelt on the ground, tears streaming down her face, but she made no sound, just quietly weeping. Mr. and Mrs. Organa really love you, Leia, Tang Xiao said slowly, but love alone is not enough. You also need power. Why? Why? Princess Leia asked softly. Because you are different, Tang Xiao said, squatting down and picking up Leia. He carried her towards the training room. Let's go. I will tell you some information about your father. Okay, Leia nodded, but she still didn't wipe away the tears on her face. She still couldn't accept what was happening. Arriving at the training room, Tang Xiao put Leia on the ground and waved his hand. The pet robot LOL-59, which she had been holding, flew out of her hand and was thrown to the other side. Leia looked at LOL-59, now discarded, and lowered her head, not daring to make a sound. I will tell you part of your biological father's name, Tang Xiao said directly. Leia's head shot up, looking at Tang Xiao in disbelief. She had despaired of ever knowing anything about her parents, but now, even a part of their names was incredibly important to her. Darth? Tang Xiao slowly said the word. Leia's face was a little dazed, and she repeated the word, Darth. Your father's name contains profound meaning and powerful power. Darth is the definition of this power, Tang Xiao explained. Leia couldn't understand what Tang Xiao was saying. She just looked at him blankly, not knowing what to say. I will also tell you my other name, Tang Xiao continued. Isn't it, Tang Xiao? Leia asked. Darth Malthael, Tang Xiao said calmly. Leia's whole body felt as if she had been electrocuted. Her eyes widened, and she stared directly at Tang Xiao. Tang Xiao was very satisfied with her reaction. He nodded and said, So, do you understand? You are my father? Princess Leia seemed to understand. A drop of cold sweat ran down Tang Xiao's forehead. He tried his best to suppress his laughter and said seriously, No, I am not your father. I am telling you that your father and I have one thing in common, Darth. Then, what is Darth? Leia finally asked the right question. In this galaxy, there should be no more than 10 people named Darth. So you see, I have given you a very accurate range, Tang Xiao said. I know. Leia still didn't understand. She felt that there was no difference between knowing this information and not knowing it. You still don't understand because you, Tang Xiao continued, you don't understand the meaning of the name Darth. To be precise, it's not just a name, but a title. Leia nodded. Although she couldn't fully grasp the concept, she tried. I had hard to remember every word Tang Xiao said because it was about her biological father. Let me explain it more clearly. What is the so-called Darth? Tang Xiao raised his hand, and a barbell weighing over 100 kilograms flew towards him out of thin air. With a fierce grip, he twisted the barbell into a knot. Bang! The crumpled barbell fell to the ground with a loud thud, causing Leia to take a step back. She looked at Tang Xiao, her eyes filled with fear. Under the protection of the Organa couple, she had never known what the Force was, but she understood the weight of the barbell and the immense power required to twist it like that. Don't be afraid, Leia. You have the same power within you, perhaps even stronger, because, Tang Xiao said slowly, You are the daughter of a Darth. My father had this power too, didn't he? Leia asked. Very perceptive. Yes, he possessed such formidable power, Tang Xiao replied. And this power is why I can't know who he is, right? Leia asked again. Indeed, only when you truly understand the meaning of Darth can you know who he is, because only then will you truly face a choice, Tang Xiao explained. And as I have always said, making a choice requires strength. I don't quite understand why making a choice requires power, Leia said. Tang Xiao waved his hand again, and an apple and a bottle of drink flew over from a table in the training room. Holding both items in one hand, he asked, Choose, do you want the apple or the drink? Leia thought for a moment. She felt the drink might be dangerous, so she pointed at the apple and said, The apple, thank you. Tang Xiao sneered, waved his hand, and a towel flew over. He threw the towel to Leia and said, But you can only have this. Leia looked down at the towel, confused. I don't want a towel? But with your current strength, you are not qualified to make a choice. Tang Xiao said, What you want to obtain is determined by your power. Leia froze. Only when you have mastered power can you have the right to choose. This is the first lesson I will teach you, Tang Xiao said. After that, I will personally guide you. Chapter 1944, The Xilu People's Counterattack. Unknown Star Territory, the former capital of the Xilu Empire, the planet Levick. A fierce battle is unfolding outside Levick's planet. The enormous figure of the Eternity-class super aircraft carrier towers like a mountain. The 3-particle light spears arranged in a zigzag pattern at the front continue to fire, and the beams of death shine on everyone. All that passes by is destruction and burning. Near the Eternity, a formation composed of the Steadfast-class heavy cruiser and the double-blade electronic warfare light cruiser is also firing wildly. Covering this main fleet are about 10 flat-shaped cruisers. These are cruisers built by the Pieg people and are derogatorily called slave ships in the Xilu Empire. What they face are a total of 20 Sirui-class battlecruisers from the original Sirui Empire and more than 30 small and medium-sized battleships. In the face of such a massive force, even the Eternal super aircraft carrier struggles. The particle light spear of the Eternal super aircraft carrier is naturally very powerful. Even when facing a Siri-class battlecruiser, it can shoot one down at a time. However, the battleship's particle light spear is fixed at the front of the battleship. To aim, the Eternal's enormous 5,694-meter-long hull must move with it, making aiming very difficult. Under normal circumstances, when the two sides are still far apart, a few shots from the particle light spear are enough to collapse the opponent's morale. But this time, the remaining forces of the original Xilu Empire have obviously come to fight for their lives. The reason for their desperate efforts is simple. Floating in the outer orbit of Levick's planet is a supergiant ring-shaped building with a diameter of more than 40,000 meters. For such buildings, all civilizations that have entered the interstellar era have a similar understanding, regardless of whether they can really master this technology. That is, a Stargate. This giant structure, which looks related to interstellar navigation, is placed here, and as it nears completion, it has begun to emit extremely strong hyperspace fluctuations. Everyone understands what this means. You must know that the super battleship with a length of more than 5,000 meters did not appear out of thin air. Once a civilization that can build such a powerful battleship can open the passage to travel freely, the Xilu people will be completely doomed. There will be no room for struggle. The leader of the remaining forces of the original Xilu Empire, General Lepix, decisively devoted his last strength and launched the final assault on the planet Levick. In fact, the reason for his desperation was because the remaining forces he commanded were simply unsustainable. The Xilu Empire is a very deformed empire. They regard all foreigners except their own race as batteries. It can be said to be an anti-civilization and anti-social form. They make enemies and plunder everywhere, so naturally, they have no friends. They were afraid of retaliation, fear of resistance and overthrow, so they took an extreme approach, building all the most critical scientific research, military industry, and industry in their capital, Kryak Palace. This approach has indeed made the Xilu Empire an extremely centralized empire, and it has also effectively curbed the emergence of internal opposition forces. But the problem is, this time their enemies come from outside. Shepard and the Unknown Star Territory Exploration Fleet used very sharp raid tactics to directly capture the Kryak Palace, destroying the administrative core of the Xilu Empire and inadvertently cutting off the Xilu Empire's scientific research, military industry, and industrial supplies. Therefore, after General Lepix took away the main fleet of the Xilu Empire, he soon discovered that without the production and supply of Kryak Palace, he could not maintain the expenses of this huge fleet. As time goes by, the situation becomes increasingly dire. Admiral Lepix faced a dire situation. The Condi tie-in of his warships was deteriorating, and his combatants were growing increasingly lax. The most critical issue was the depletion of human batteries on his battleships, with no place to replenish them. Forced into a corner, General Lepix had no choice but to launch a desperate attack. Surprisingly, his gamble seemed to pay off. When the attack and defense positions shifted, the seemingly invincible super battleship encountered unexpected difficulties. Admiral Lepix understood that the 5,600-meter super battleship relied on two formidable assets. First, its indestructible and powerful main gun, which boasted an extremely long range, capable of reaching across an entire planetary system. Second, its mobility, allowing it to jump into hyperspace even within a gravitational field. However, in this defensive battle, the super battleship's mobility was rendered useless, reducing it to an ordinary battleship with powerful firepower. Consequently, faced with the siege of 20 battlecruisers, even the Infinity-class super aircraft carrier could no longer hold out. But Shepard and Vice Admiral Heru, the commander of the exploration fleet, could not afford to retreat. The construction of the Stargate had reached a critical phase. A retreat at this juncture could lead to the Stargate's destruction, nullifying all their exploration efforts. Fortunately, they were not fighting alone. They received substantial support from the resistance forces, particularly the Piaiks, a race once subjugated by the Xilu people. After the Xilu Empire's capital, Kryak Palace, was captured and the empire fell, the Piaik people, who had been enslaved by the Xilu, realized they could resist and conquer their oppressors. As uprisings erupted across Levic's planet, the Piaik people rose up and fought back against the Xilu. The Dawn Principality's exploration fleet distributed all the weapons and equipment stored in Kryak Palace to the Piaik resistance fighters. With their absolute air supremacy and powerful marines, they used Kryak Palace as a base to operate across the planet. Whenever a large Xilu army was detected, the Marines would deploy via spaceship to defeat them. Under these circumstances, more than 90 Piaik resistance bases gradually formed on Levic's planet. Some bases had over 50,000 troops, while others boasted up to 1 million. The arms factory in Kryak Palace resumed operations with the help of the Piaik people, producing a large amount of weapons and equipment daily for the resistance forces. Meanwhile, the Xilu people lacked the capability to manufacture even a blaster rifle, as all military factories were located in Kryak Palace. Over the past few months, the Xilu people had been steadily retreating, while the Piaik people advanced vigorously. The Piaiks and the Dawn Principality's exploration fleet formally allied, becoming friendly forces. The Piaik people began assisting the exploration fleet in production and combat operations. The warships they built were incorporated into the exploration fleet, joining the defense of Levic's planet. Most importantly, the Piaik people sent their best engineers and scientists to help build the Stargate. Originally, Lieutenant General Heru's plan estimated the Stargate would take a year to complete. However, with the Piaik's assistance, the timeline was reduced to 3 to 4 months. They were now just one step away from completion. The Piaik people's strong backlash was fueled by the relentless exploitation they had endured under the Xilu, driving their determination to resist and reclaim their freedom. The Piaik people and the Xilu people share a common ancestry, which has led to many similarities between them. Despite the Xilu people turning other races into batteries, they retained a significant portion of the Piaik population because the Piaik could easily assist them in various tasks. However, when the battery supply was insufficient, the Piaik people were also forced to become batteries. As the Xilu people centralized their power, they became increasingly superior, delegating many tasks to the Piak people. Consequently, in various industries, while the managers were Xilu, the workers were predominantly Piak. When the Piak people eventually rose up, resisted, and established their own political power, they faced no transition issues. The Piak people were already capable of maintaining societal operations, having engineers, scientists, teachers, doctors, and more among them. However, due to their status as slaves, they had been confined to the lower echelons of society. The Xilu people ultimately paid the price for their brutal exploitation. The very people they oppressed, the Piak, were now taking their place. As Admiral Lepik launched a desperate attack on the Levic planet, the Piak people were rapidly occupying it. During this process, the Xilu people shed blood like rivers. The Piak people showed no mercy to the Xilu, driven by a single word: kill. Having experienced oppression and exploitation, the Piak had long abandoned any illusions about the Xilu. Now possessing stronger military power, they left no chance for the Xilu to recover, knowing that if the Xilu were restored, they would commit genocide against the Piak. Although the exploration fleet began to introduce alternative energy sources, such as controllable nuclear fusion, it would take time to replace the existing human battery technology. All energy supply and transmission networks on Levic planet were based on human body battery technology. During this transitional period, the Piak people continued to use human batteries, but this time it was the Xilu people who were forced into the batteries. Lieutenant General He Ru ordered the destruction of all factories producing human batteries and the deletion of all related data. Led by him and Shepard, the exploration fleet was determined to prevent this anti-human, anti-society, and anti-civilization technology from spreading. The human batteries still in use on Levic planet were gradually being phased out, and eventually, this technology would disappear completely. In the outer space of the planet, an air battle had been raging for an entire day. The Eternity-class super aircraft carrier had been severely damaged under the siege of several Sirui-class battlecruisers. Due to continuous launches, the particle lance system had overheated and was temporarily unusable. The Eternal had to rely on other weapon systems installed on the battleship to fight back. 2 Steadfast-class cruisers had been sunk, 1 double-blade electronic warfare light cruiser had been destroyed, 2 had been severely damaged, and 6 slave battleships provided by the Piak had also been destroyed. The Normandy, commanded by Shepard, remained active. With its stealth system and super maneuverability, the Normandy continued to assault and outmaneuver the Xilu fleet, targeting lone battleships and causing constant trouble. However, the Normandy was too small and had limited firepower to significantly influence the battle. Attack! Attack! No matter the cost! Destroy that super battleship for me! Admiral Lepik, the leader of the Xilu Empire's participating forces, commanded from a small Urif-class cruiser. The battlefield was a scene of utter chaos and brutality. Cruiser Fighting's eyes turned red with rage as he surveyed the carnage. Despite his fury, he remained rational and had wisely chosen not to make the Siri-class battlecruiser his flagship. He knew that the super battleship, even a Siri-class, was equipped with a main gun that posed a significant risk. Each time the enemy fired, there was a 1 in 20 chance of being hit. Under the strict orders of Admiral Lepue, the remaining fleet of the Xilu Empire launched a frenzied attack. Their capital ships, with a numerical advantage, and their drones, powered by human batteries, were formidable opponents. The exploration fleet responded with equal ferocity. The Eternal super aircraft carrier even used its own body to shield the Stargate from the Xilu warship's gunfire. The construction of the Stargate was nearing its final stages. Vasari engineers were in the control room making the last adjustments. They knew that even if the Stargate wasn't fully completed, it could still support 1 or 2 small-scale voyages, and they were determined to make it work. Fire! Ram them! The captain of a Xilu Urifu-class cruiser was on the brink of madness. He roared commands, directing his warship to ram the Eternal super aircraft carrier. The exploration fleet's formation had gaps due to continuous losses, and no other battleship could intercept the Urif-class cruiser. The cruiser fired wildly as it approached at high speed. The Eternal couldn't dodge and was struck directly on the spaceport at the bottom of its front end. The violent impact shattered the spaceport, and the Eternal's hull was knocked askew. At that moment, a colorful laser beam suddenly pierced through the chaos. The relatively intact rear half of the Urif-class cruiser was ignited by the laser, triggering a massive explosion. Amidst the explosion, several black figures appeared in the center of the Stargate.